Chapter 816. Imagination was never something that could be done by just one person. When a group of people were imagining the same thing together, the holes in their imaginations would often become bigger and bigger, eventually forming a sinkhole. The 10 generals proved this with their actual actions and strength. A few minutes later, the 10 generals on standby on the immortal warship, represented by General E, had the following conversation with Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal in the control room. Your Excellency, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, may I ask when we could go on stage? General E asked weakly. For a moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal didn't react and only felt that this sentence seemed a little strange, but he still replied, General E and the other generals, please wait a little longer. After this entertainment exhibition match is over, it'll be time for the generals to take the stage. We're still at the warm-up stage. The generals can come, so we must control the atmosphere well. Your Excellency Senior Immortal, what are you saying? We're just following orders. General E laughed. Actually, more than half of us 10 generals have already retired. Currently, Explosion Saint General Bai and Wisdom Saint General Chi are mostly in charge of Huaxiao Alliance's main affairs. As for the rest of them, they're just making use of their old age after retirement. Ha ha ha, General E is too modest, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. General, Your Excellency Senior Immortal, don't call me General. Old E is fine. Who's with whom between us? You're welcome. Old E, is this appropriate? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was blank. General E seemed a little strange. Isn't this a little inappropriate? What's wrong with that? Or you could just call me Little E or Little E from now on. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sucked in a cold breath. Then, should I call you Brother E? Brother E? That works too. General E thought about it carefully. Since he was here to worm his way into being friends, he naturally had to change the way he addressed him. Calling him General all the time was really too formal. Now that they were addressing each other as brothers, it did sound like they were much closer. In the future, Lord Perfected Immortal, please don't stand on ceremony. You can call us brothers and sisters among the 10 generals. There's no relationship. Medical Sage Luo Chiohuai. You can call her Sister Luo. Sister Luo? Wait a minute. Hearing this, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal finally realized that something wasn't right. Just now, it seemed that General E had called him Lord Senior Immortal. That's not right. What was going on? Why did the 10 generals suddenly address him respectfully? Holding his head, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal felt his brain go duong in pain. General, oh, no. Brother E, do you have something to say to me? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. General E laughed. No, I just think we'll be closer to each other this way. After all, the relationship between our Huaxiao Alliance and the Office of Strategic Deception is extraordinary, just like the relationship between a bride's family and a daughter-in-law. Brother E, this analogy, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal found himself at a loss for words. My analogy is very appropriate. I'm not done yet. What I mean is that our Huaxiao Alliance is the maiden family, the Office of Strategic Deception is the daughter-in-law, and us 10 generals are the dowry maids. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Little Silver, Loopy Toad. At the same time, the arena challenge in the martial arena had reached its climax. After the defeat of the 12 Earth-level sect leaders, there were already 3 Sky-level sect leaders who went on stage to challenge one-on-one. It could only be said that when all was said and done, the sect leaders of Sky-level sects had their own stubbornness and didn't want to be associated with others. In fact, a large part of the reason was that after seeing the 12 Earth-level sect leaders swept away, a lot of the media outlets kept taking photos and writing articles about it. This action made many of the Sky-level sect leaders who had originally wanted to form a faction to challenge give up on the idea of forming a group. If they went up and ended up like these 12 Earth-level sect leaders, they would definitely lose face if the news got out. So it was better to challenge one-on-one. Even if they lost, they could say that they weren't informed today. However, although the 3 Sky-level sect leaders went on stage to challenge one-on-one, their performances in the arena weren't satisfactory. This crispy noodles down monarch was really too strong. In a short 5 minutes, the 3 challengers were sent off the stage. In the arena, everyone only heard 3 miserable cries. Aya! Ouch! Ow ow! The media. The last person to cry out in pain was the sect leader of the sky level, 6th level sand sculpture sect. The sand sculpture sect had been doing very well in the last 2 years, and it was famous for its secret earth, wood, sand, and stone technique. Not only could it be used to build buildings, it could also be used in battle. Nowadays, many civil engineering graduates from universities had joined the sand sculpture sect, and many of them had become outstanding architects. As the sect leader of a sect, sand sculpture sect leader and I, full name, and I'll naturally wasn't to be underestimated. In the arena earlier, sect leader and I had directly used his ultimate move, sand sculpture burial. The rubble in the arena was instantly reduced to sand by this move, and in the end, it turned into 2 blue dragons that tightly bound crispy noodles down monarch. They aimed at his ankles and suddenly shot up from the ground to wrap around him. This move was so terrifying. The thick sand turned into earthy dragons that crawled up his ankles, directly making it seem as if crispy noodles down monarch's lower body had become one with the arena, and he couldn't move at all. And the most terrifying thing was when this technique successfully wrapped around him. Almost everybody could sense that enormous molecules of spiritual energy were being condensed in the sand. The dragon formed by the burial of sand sculptures was absorbing the spiritual energy deep inside the mother lodes and dissecting it into dense molecules of spiritual energy. This move doesn't consume much spirit energy at all, sect leader and I. The spirit power is completely extracted from the earth veins. Once it accumulates to a certain amount, sect leader and I just needs to gently urge it, and this crispy noodles down monarch's legs will be crippled. Liu Yuming analyzed from below, but he didn't say it in absolute terms, because he didn't see any panic on this crispy noodles down monarch's face. In the next moment, sect leader and I put his hands behind his back and stared at crispy noodles down monarch. Now you have 2 choices down monarch. 1, surrender, and I can send you off the arena with dignity. 2, blow off the Daylord's legs. But don't worry, down monarch, I'll control my strength and direct them to blow up. They won't shatter, and I can reattach them after I'm done. Sect leader and I, it seems you're really confident in yourself. Crispy noodles down monarch chuckled, and then in the next instant, his expression suddenly turned serious. Staring straight at the earth dragons wrapped around his lower body, he shouted in a low voice, "You don't touch me." Chapter 817. The sect leader of the sand sculpture sect was instantly dumbfounded by this move. This is Liu Yoming's eyes widened as he revealed an extremely horrified expression. Although he wasn't sure if that move was what he thought it was, he was certain that he wasn't mistaken. On the side, sect leader's son, who had just been freed from the reporters, also revealed an extremely surprised expression. This is sect leader Liu's eyes darkened, and he sent a message. Words are law. Words of law enforcement? Sect leader's son felt as if his head had been struck by lightning, and with a buzzing sound, he stood rooted to the ground. Wasn't this the legendary divine Tao that one would naturally comprehend after reaching the pinnacle of cultivation? Sect leader's son sucked in a sharp breath. This crispy noodles Tao monarch was actually a venerated immortal? Although they were the heads of heaven-grade sects, both Sect Master Liu and Sect Master Sun had limited horizons. Since they had never touched the god domain, they naturally thought that the celestial monarch realm was the highest realm. But this couldn't be blamed on sect leader Sun, because the vast majority of cultivators didn't know about this. As the saying goes, a leaf obscures the eye. Crispy noodles down monarch is too strong. Someone sighed from below. Even with such methods, he was still just a sect team leader. Then what about the Office of Strategic Deception's overall fighting strength? It was truly hard to estimate. I admit defeat. Sect leader and I of the Sand Sculpture sect was no fool either. His previous move could be regarded as his ultimate move, but it was easily neutralized by his opponent. This crispy noodles down monarch wasn't on the same level as him at all. Therefore, it was better to simply surrender and step down. That would make him look more dignified. In the machine room, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal spoke to Crispy Noodles Down Monarch telepathically from a distance. Down Monarch, it's about time to pack up. It's almost time. No matter who comes up next, you just have to put down the water. I'm sure. Crispy Noodles Down Monarch nodded. The immortal warship had been hovering above them for a long time. After all, the 10 generals were sitting on it. They represented the largest official governing body for cultivators in Huaxiao Nation. It wouldn't be good to drag things out for too long. Is there anyone else who wants to challenge me? At this time, it was clear that Wang Han had also received the message from the computer room and decided to speed up the progress of this entertainment exhibition match. However, none of the sky-level sect leaders dared to come up to the stage. In an instant, the scene fell into an awkward silence. I used too much force. Crispy Noodles Down Monarch pursed his lips, his beautiful phoenix eyes sweeping back and forth in the crowd. Several minutes later, someone in the crowd finally raised his hand. "Excuse me, may I take up the challenge?" Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. It was a young man who didn't look very old. However, the young man's clothes were very tattered. It was a shabby magical robe whose only function was to keep warm. In fact, this was already the most decent piece of clothing that the young man could take out. Of course. Wang Han nodded. I haven't asked which sect this brother is from. All the sect leaders gathered in the northern square had a VIP number, and this young man was naturally no exception. He had a badge pinned to his chest and a pendant that the Office of Strategic Deception had given him hung around his neck. The young man smiled in embarrassment. I am the sect master, Su Xing, sect leader. Are you the sect leader or the sect master? No, my sect is called sect leader, Su Xing replied. For a moment, everyone froze on the spot. Sect leader, what kind of sect was this? Why had they never heard of it before? Many of the sect bigwigs present shook their heads inwardly. But in the arena, Wang Han had already looked up information on this sect leader based on the VIP number. It was confirmed that this was the sect leader of a dust-level sect. President Liu, have you heard of this sect? Sect leader son of the Alliance asked. I think I've heard of it. I heard that it was one of the most miserable sects last year. Liu Yuming nodded slightly. When the sect leader was first established, it was originally a black-level sect. But later, because of poor management, the number of sect leaders and disciples declined year by year. They fell from black level to yellow level. The sect's land changed several times, and they sold it to pay off their debts, then bought a new place to settle down. I thought this sect was going to close down. I didn't expect it to still be standing strong, and now it's actually dust level. Earth level sects were the lowest level sects, and most of the disciples in these sects did manual labor. For example, a lot of high-level sect construction, relocation, weed trimming, and so on would be outsourced to dust-level sects for low-cost labor. Furthermore, dust-level sects had the lowest standards for establishing a sect. As long as the sect leader reached the foundation establishment stage and recruited 10 people, he could establish a sect. Apart from that, he only needed to pay a Huaxiao Alliance membership fee once every 10 years. But given Su Xing's dire straits, forget whether the sect leader could afford the Huaxiao Alliance membership fee in his current state of business. It was likely that even the number of people in the sect already couldn't meet the initial requirements, and it was clear that Su Xing's next words completely confirmed Liu Yoming's conjecture. Su Xing, haha, I'm the only one left in our sect leader. If we can't solve the problem of numbers before we pay the membership fee, sect leader will disappear. Everyone, may I ask what your honorable sect does? Of course it's clapping, sect leader. Su Xing said, clapping is also hard work. How can no one clap for a leader's speech on a large-scale occasion? And our sect leader specializes in this line of work. After Su Xing said this, everyone was suddenly enlightened. So it's a water army that can clap. You can interpret it however you want. Su Xing shook his head indifferently and scratched his itchy buzz cut. It had been a while since he had showered. How come you're the only one left in sect leader? Someone was curious. A celebrity invited us to clap before and requested that we use 5 people to film the effect of Chu's army of thousands and thousands of horses. Then, the other 4 used too much force and killed themselves. After that, I'm the only one left. Everyone, at that moment, Su Xing stared at the arena. So, can I go on stage? I'm still hoping to sell this first-class holy artifact to pay off my debt and make a comeback. Of course you can. Wang Han cleared his throat. Sir, you can go first. Oh. As soon as he said that, Su Xing's figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. He was so fast that it was too much for the eyes to take in. No one expected the sect leader of a dust-level sect to actually have this kind of strength. When Su Xing reappeared, he was already in front of Crispy Noodle's down monarch. A slap, like a sudden clap of thunder, directly smashed towards his face. The power of Heavenly Tao. Chapter 8:18. Although Crispy Noodle's Down Monarch's clone had its own consciousness, its memories were synchronized. Thus, when he had exchanged blows with his dust-level sect head, the memory of his clash with Su Xing had also been transmitted to his mind. This was an evenly matched exchange of palms. The instant their palms collided, a powerful gust of wind instantly formed. It was as if a huge mountain was toppling over, or as if seawater was flowing backwards. The powerful airwave caused many people to be unable to control their bodies and fall backwards. No one had thought that the sect head of mere dust-level sect would actually be so powerful to fight Crispy Noodle's down monarch head-on, and even force him to exchange blows with him. No one could have imagined that in the end, the grand prize of a first-class holy weapon would ultimately be won by the sect head of a dust-level sect. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had said earlier that he was going easy on Su Xing, but in fact, that wasn't the case. Su Xing had already won. Even if this palm hadn't hurt Crispy Noodle's down monarch's clone in the slightest, Crispy Noodle's down monarch had no choice but to exchange blows with him. A palm that contained the power of Heavenly Tao was absolutely explosive and lethal. Wang Ling was sure that if his clone hadn't met the palm just now, even if the palm had been deflected somewhere else, it would have been impossible for Wang Ling to escape. Wang Ling was sure that if the clone hadn't exchanged blows with him just now, even if the palm had been deflected somewhere else, the terrifying destructive power would have instantly corroded the entire arena and then spread throughout the northern square. The worst-case scenario was Heavenly Tao radiation, which was a power that even cultivators' bodies couldn't resist. Currently, Huaxiao Nation's current cultivation science and technology had already conquered and prevented cancer. But the cancerous changes caused by Heavenly Tao radiation were of a special kind and were known as spirit cancer. That was to say, even the spirit energy cultivators used contained cancer cells. This was the only major scientific obstacle that currently couldn't be overcome. Of course, it wasn't because of Heavenly Tao that spirit cancer had been discovered. Furthermore, it was because some cultivators who had failed their tribulation. After failing their tribulation, there was a high chance that they would be punished by Heavenly Tao, and the survival rate after the punishment was 20%. Thus, many cultivators who were lucky enough to survive the punishment found cases of spirit cancer after the punishment. Currently, according to official statistics, the probability of spirit cancer among those who survived a Heavenly Tao punishment was 5%. 5% didn't seem like much, but this was a global statistic. Thus, Crispy Noodle's down monarch had no choice but to exchange blows with him just now. This was a clash of palms, and it was also to neutralize the power of the Heavenly Taos in this palm, so as to prevent the radiation of the Heavenly Taos from spreading. But after that palm strike just now, Wang Ling was certain of one thing. This sect leader Su Xing in front of him probably didn't know that Wang Ling could use the power of Heavenly Tao. Those who could truly control Heavenly Tao could control the power of radiation, such as Wang Ling, or that Wang Zhen who had recently come looking for trouble. Although he couldn't control the output of primordial qi, he had full control over Heavenly Tao. He had always been very confident in his understanding of Heavenly Tao. This thing was much simpler than the midterm and final exams. You win. Crispy Noodles Down Monarch straightened his clothes and brushed off a few wisps of dust. At the same time, inside the mechanism room, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal also received a text message from Wong Ling. Little Silver stared at the screen. This person seems to have the same scent as Master, but much, much weaker. A strange person. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal nodded. It is a little strange. Brother Ling has already texted me. He believes that Brother Su has unconsciously comprehended the heavenly Tao. Woof. Unconsciously comprehended? Loopy Toad's face was full of question marks. That's right. That's Brother Ling's preliminary judgment, but it still needs to be confirmed. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said, if we can find out the main reason for unconsciously comprehending the heavenly Tao, it will be a major breakthrough. That makes sense. Little Silver and Loopy Toad both nodded. Teacher Wong, please tell this Brother Su Xing to come to Sect Hall to receive his award after the celebration. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said to Teacher Wong Han through the walkie-talkie. Just like that, Su Xing was quietly taken care of. There was a good saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Even the sect leader of a dust-level sect couldn't be underestimated. Most of the people present were sincerely convinced by the outcome of this match. Even the sky-level sect leaders who had challenged Su Xing earlier might not have been able to do the same with the strength and destructive power of that palm just now. That was because a lot of people could see that while Crispy Noodles' Down Monarch's palm seemed to have met Su Xing's attack head-on, it was actually to neutralize it. There was a kind of spring wind and rain power. The moment Su Xing's extremely explosive palm came into contact with it, it was like a sponge facing the edge of a knife, absorbing a lot of the power. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been as simple as the northern square falling backward. If Crispy Noodles' Down Monarch hadn't taken action to neutralize it, even Lu Yuming himself felt that he might have been blown away. According to the rules, the prize for the entertainment performance in the arena this time will be won by Mr. Su Xing, the sect leader of a dust-level sect. Mr. Su Xing can leave the stage and rest first. Please come to Sect Hall later to receive your award. After Teacher Wong said this, he took the lead in applauding, and for a moment, the northern square was filled with thunderous applause. A lot of camera flashes hit Su Xing's face, giving him a long-lost sense of excitement. This first-class holy weapon could definitely pay off the sect's debt in one go, and there might even be some leftover. After this reporter's report, sect leader's reputation would definitely soar in the future. The people in the northern square now were all authoritative media outlets in the cultivation circle. With this report, it was really hard to estimate how much profit sect leader would bring in the future. Sect leader is going to be famous. We'll go find this sect leader Su later and get close to him. Lu Yuming also saw this scene. We'll go find him and get close to him? Sect leader Sun Han just said. Although sect leader is a dust-level sect, after this wave of fame, it won't be hard at all for him to advance to Earth or even heaven level in a short time. Besides, this sect leader isn't incompetent. You should have felt the destructive power of that palm just now, Lu Yuming said. All right, I'll listen to you. Sect leader Sun said. Public opinion, reviews, popularity, in the end, what could be driven was direct profit. Now was a great opportunity to rope in sect leader. At this point in the celebration, the main event that everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The immortal warship that had been hovering in the air for a long time finally made a move. A golden beam of light shot down from the belly of the immortal warship. A lot of people discussed spiritedly below, guessing who on Earth was inside the immortal warship. Could it be the sect leader of Immortal Palm Tree Sect? Someone guessed. As the only sky-level second-class sect at the moment, Immortal Palm Tree Sect didn't attend the celebration this time. Some people guessed that its sect leader might have been invited as a mystery guest. What kind of scene was the Office of Strategic Deception putting on this time? Although Immortal Palm Tree Sect had always been aloof, it wasn't to the extent that it wouldn't give them face amid the hubbub of voices below. A figure appeared in front of everyone in the golden light from the immortal warship. It was an old man in training clothes with a hedgehog hairstyle and a grizzled beard and hair. Some sect leaders in the northern square were already rubbing their eyes. Sword Blade Master? Chapter 819. Blade Master Yi Jianquan, one of the founding fathers of the nation, who had also become a Yuan Venerate, General Yi. He was one of the few people in the country who had been conferred the supreme title of King General. Together with the other 9 King Generals, they were collectively known as the 10 Generals. Furthermore, the title of Blade Master was the most resounding among the 10 Generals, because 100 years ago, there was a movie about the 10 Generals called Yuan Venerate Martial Arts, the Great Ruler of the Firmament, which was shot from General Yi's point of view. In the movie, General Yi's various famous Blade Master skills were highly reproduced, including the palm sword which he had used in his duel with the Old Devil. Even now, it was still unforgettable, but even though he was the most famous of the 10 Generals, General Yi usually kept a very low profile. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to attend a sect's founding celebration. However, when this old man in white exercise clothes appeared in front of everyone, the mouths of the sect leaders dropped open in astonishment, and they were completely speechless. General, how could it be? Liu Yuming, together with sect leader Sun and the group of alliance members next to him, were stupefied. They had been guessing who the immortal warship was, but never had they expected that one of the 10 generals would actually show up, and the most famous of the 10 generals, Blade Master at that. Liu Yoming's legs turned to jelly, and he almost fainted on the spot. As luck would have it, Professor Yang Bingchuan was next to him. Sect Leader Liu, you don't look too good? I have low blood sugar. Liu Yuming didn't know what to say. At the same time, he gave Sect Leader Sun a frantic look. He just wanted to know if it was too late to withdraw the magic array crystals that had been set up on the mountain. This was one of Huaxio's 10 generals. Liu Yuming had to pay with his life to find someone he couldn't afford to offend. Sect Leader Liu, it's actually not too late. There's still room for redemption. Yang Bingchuan patted Liu Yuming on the shoulder. He knew that this sect leader Liu was a conservative and not a bad person by nature. It was very normal for sects to compete with each other. Sect leader Liu has held a high position all these years, but you should always reflect on yourself. You mustn't let your desires swell because of a small amount of power in your hands, which goes against your original intentions. Professor Yang didn't say these words out loud. Instead, when he pressed down on Sect Master Liu's shoulder, he transmitted his voice to him. Professor Yang, once a person becomes arrogant, sometimes they don't even know who they are. I wonder if Sect Leader Liu watches League of Legends. Sect Leader Liu replied telepathically, sometimes, Professor Yang. Back then, the little fatty who was appointed as the archer ended up ruining his future on the world stage. He thought that he could create a miracle with his own strength and lead an entire team. But what he didn't understand was that the Alliance had never been a one-man game. What did they rely on to reach the top position? Was it his own strength and skills? Perhaps it was part of the reason, but obviously that's not all. Liu Yuming was filled with regret. If this matter were to be exposed, and he was to be blamed, it would not be something that could be explained away with just a few words. Sai, you should have thought of this earlier. A sect that had just been established already had such a huge presence. Not only did it occupy an unprecedented area, it also had a group of expert bigwigs in various fields. Who else could it be as its backer? In a whole of Huaxio Nation, wasn't it only Huaxio Alliance that had this kind of ability? Professor Yang, please advise me. Liu Yuming knew that Yang Bingchuan might already be his last straw. Professor Yang smiled slightly. Sect Leader Liu, you've been distracted. You probably lost something, right? Saying that, Professor Yang gave Sect Leader Liu a brocade pouch. Liu Yuming took it and looked inside and was instantly so frightened that his hair stood on end. Inside this brocade pouch was none other than the transmission crystal that senior descendant of the Dragon Clan had given them. When did Professor Yang? We already knew about it before sect leader Liu joined the Office of Strategic Deception. Liu Yuming was astonished once again. This Office of Strategic Deception's intelligence network was a little too powerful. This brocade pouch was lost by sect leader Lu. I've already ordered people to take it down and retrieve it one by one. Professor Yang chuckled. But I can't give it to you for free. I will never forget Professor Yang's great kindness in saving my life. If you have any requests, feel free to ask. Lu Yuming cupped his fists in a salute. If you want to thank someone, thank His Excellency Senior Immortal. This is all the chief's idea. Professor Yang waved his hand. But I do have a request. Furthermore, it's not for sect leader Lu, but for the Alliance. If you want to incorporate the Alliance, I will do my best to convince you. Sect leader Lu misunderstands. Our Office of Strategic Deception isn't so shameless as to use our weakness to force people to submit. We won't incorporate the Alliance, let alone force it to disband. Professor Yang shook his head and said, I only need sect leader Lu to promise the Office of Strategic Deception one thing. Professor Yang, go ahead. In the future, the Alliance can no longer maliciously restrict the ranks of sects and must leave a chance for sects above 5th class. Even if they don't want to join the Alliance, you can't deliberately suppress them or suppress their ratings. Professor Yang said softly, peaceful development has always been the Office of Strategic Deception's main theme. I hope that the Alliance, as a major foundation for sky-level 5th class sects and above, can also shoulder this responsibility. Only when we prosper together can we achieve great things, right? Hearing this, Lu Yuming sighed with emotion. When all was said and done, this was the bearing of a large sect. I will remember, of course, our Office of Strategic Deception also knows that the Alliance has always been doing this kind of business. We make a profit by collecting protection fees. If we can't do this in the future, the other sect leaders will definitely object. Yes, so, after this celebration, sect leader Lu can reconvene a meeting. You can clearly tell all the sect leaders that the Alliance will still exist in the future, but its nature will change to an organization that supports low-level sections. As long as the sect leaders of the Alliance agree to this condition, our Office of Strategic Deception can sign a contract as a guarantee. Within 5 years, each sect will be promoted by 1 level, and each year we'll invest in each sect's businesses according to their legal operations. We'll invest in each sect's businesses. What the sect leaders of the Alliance have to do is very simple, and that is to advocate for our Office of Strategic Deception in the sect's conduct in the future. I don't think this will be difficult, right? Professor Yang said. It's not difficult, not difficult. Sect leader Lu hurriedly waved his hand. He knew that this was a great opportunity, and once again, he deeply felt that he had been stupid for opposing the Office of Strategic Deception back then. If he had known that the Office of Strategic Deception was so approachable, he wouldn't have done all that shit. With Professor Yang's guarantee, sect leader Lu's complexion improved a lot. He sighed with emotion. The Office of Strategic Deception is really amazing. Compared with them, our Alliance is like a little brother. They can even invite Blade Master to attend. Professor Yang laughed. Sect leader Lu, don't belittle yourself. After all, not all the special guests have appeared yet. Who else? Sect leader Lu was startled. There are 9 other people as awesome as General E, and they're all on the Immortal Warship. Chapter 820. Blade Master E. Jianchuan was a general who had risen to fame in the Battle of Sherman before the founding of the nation. When he and Minister Shi of Huaxiao's Ministry of Defense had joined forces to slay the 7 demon gods, now that they were looking at each other from afar, he still exuded a faint sense of majesty. This was the 10 generals. He didn't give off any spiritual pressure, but people couldn't help but feel a new sense of respect. At that moment, the hearts of almost everyone present couldn't stop beating. Huaxiao Nation might still have some unsatisfactory aspects, but it was constantly developing and improving every day. The current peaceful and prosperous era was the result of the lives of past cultivation martyrs who had risked their lives to fight for it. The immortal doctor who had saved the dying, the sailors who had gone against the flow, the police guarding the city, the sentries on the border. The moment General E appeared, Everything flashed in front of everyone's eyes like a trotting horse lantern. General, he has always kept a low profile. Why is he here this time? Lu Yuming asked telepathically. Sect leader Lu, it's completely out of the chief's face that he's attending this event. Keeping a low profile is reflected in all aspects and needs to come from the heart. General E is indeed a general. Even if we cultivate for another 100 years, we still won't be able to catch up to this general's demeanor. Professor Yang smiled slightly and replied, Does sect leader Lu remember General Yi's famous saying? Lu Yuming frowned and thought for a bit. Your sword is my sword. That's indeed what General Yi said. Professor Yang said, What sect leader Lu said is from General Yi's record of Boundless Sword Dao. This book describes General Yi's arduous experience in learning Boundless Sword Dao, so that later cultivators will be able to endure hardship and be more patient on the path of cultivation. But that's not what I wanted to say. Then, General Yi also said something else, Professor Yang said. A true master always has the heart of an apprentice. Lu Yoming's eyes widened as realization dawned on him. The Office of Strategic Deception's founding ceremony was probably a day that all the sect leaders and media reporters present would never forget. To everyone's surprise, Huaxiao's 10 generals actually appeared one after another after General Yi. 10 people in total, all of them were present. The sect masters of the Sky-class sects were so shocked that they almost fell to the ground. All of this was too exaggerated and unbelievable. The 10 generals are all here? Big news. The reporters were excited. The flashing lights in the North Square didn't stop for a long time. Not long after the 10 generals appeared on the stage, the lift platform on the central stage rose again. Now, let us welcome the Chief of the General Office of Strategic Deception, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, with a warm round of applause. Accompanied by Teacher Wang's deep and magnetic voice, a man with long black hair and a long sword on his back, dressed in white ancient clothes, stepped onto the stage. At the same time, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, who had shone brilliantly in the arena, and a mysterious man dressed in armor appeared next to him. Who is this armored warrior? Some sect leaders didn't understand. But very quickly, someone guessed this person might be the legendary Ling Jinren. Ling Jinren? Think about it. All these years, it's been widely rumored that this great death-courting senior is closest to someone. And who does he have the closest relationship with? Isn't it this Ling Jinren? Everyone nodded. That did seem to be the case. At this moment, at such a grand sect founding ceremony, all the group leaders of the Office of Strategic Deception are standing in the first row, and none of them are qualified to stand on the stage with Senior Immortal. This is even more proof that this Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch and Ling Jinren have an extraordinary relationship with Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Below the stage, a big shot analyzed the situation forcefully. All these years, it's been widely rumored that Ling Jinren has helped Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal deal with a lot of trouble. In my opinion, this might be a misunderstanding. Maybe Ling Jinren is just playing the role of a think tank. But the person who really did it was this Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. I see, below the northern square, many sect leaders were discussing. For a moment, they were whispering to each other, and the discussion was very lively. At that moment, the 10 generals had already landed on the stage to congratulate Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Brother Grenade-throwing. Congratulations. Brother Grenade-throwing. Congratulations, congratulations. Brother Grenade-throwing. Congratulations on the grand opening. Congratulations on the founding of the sect. In the end, as soon as the 10 generals spoke, the audience below the North Square instantly fell silent. Brother E, what are you saying? Sister Luo is also too polite. Everyone, please stand behind me first. Brother E, and Sister Luo? One of the sect leaders almost spat out blood. What kind of intimate relationship was this? No wonder all the 10 generals had appeared. If they had known earlier, they would have built a good relationship with the cultivation forum earlier. This was a huge loss. Seeing that all the leaders were present, Wang Han said, "Next, let's welcome the chief to speak." Clap, 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 clap. thunderous applause rang out below the North Square for a long time. Thank you, distinguished guests, sect leaders, and media for participating in our sect's founding ceremony. Today, our North Square is truly a sea of people, with gongs and drums ringing, firecrackers exploding, red flags fluttering in the wind. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said passionately, "Our General Office of Strategic Deception upholds the sect's spirit of accepting all rivers into the sea. It was established to support and realize some cultivators with dreams, as well as to maintain peace among sects and resolve conflicts." While Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was speaking, some online live streamers were also broadcasting the scene at the same time. Take Daoist Guang's live stream room as an example. It alone had already gathered nearly 50 million people. Since Daoist Guang had become an online celebrity, his number of fans had increased almost uncontrollably. Oh, that was right. Daoist Guang was now also a team leader of the Office of Strategic Deception's live streamer team. On the other side, Wang Zhen, who Immortal Toya had arranged to stay at Wei Ji's place for the time being, was also eating instant noodles with Wei Ji as he watched the live stream on an online platform. Just as Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said this, someone raised a question. On such a grand day, could Senior Immortal please have this brother in armor next to you take off his helmet? Of course. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal quickly replied, "Let me make a grand introduction. This brother in armor is none other than my good brother, Ling Jinren. This is my good brother, Ling Jinren. Brother Ling, please take off your helmet." Saying this, Wang Ling controlled his clone and slowly took off his helmet. At that moment, everyone, including the 10 generals, turned to look at this mysterious Ling Jinren in the flesh. At the same time, Wang Zhen, who was watching TV with Wei Ji, directly spat out a mouthful of Lautan pickled cabbage beef noodles. F***K. This person had actually imitated his face. Wang Zhen wasn't done being astonished. Chapter 821. The sect's founding celebration had already reached its climax. In the northern square, as Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal announced in a loud voice, a total of 118 cannons were fired into the sky around the outer wall of the northern square. 118 was a heavenly Tao lucky number. Before the sect's founding ceremony, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had specially asked Diviner Reed to do a divination. Diviner Reed had never made a mistake. Last time, he had helped Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal predict a dead end, and in the end, he had indeed been killed by evil Sword God. If it hadn't been for the soul suppression ring that Wang Ling had given him, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's fate wouldn't have been as simple as leaving nothing behind. Even his soul would have been completely shattered. So Diviner Reed's divination was indeed correct, but Wang Ling hadn't been included in this divination. After all, this contestant was a Heavenly Tao whitelist user. Even the Heavenly Tao had to give way to this baby. How could he be so easily divined? So after the incident with Evil Sword God, when Diviner Reed learned that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was still alive, he thought that his divination had failed and went into seclusion for a long time. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had personally paid a visit to the sect to divine this time's Canon Salute divination before the founding of the sect. And Diviner Reed had become the leader of the Office of Strategic Deception's divination team. The sect's founding celebration this time could be said to be very grand in the truest sense of the word. All the major sects and the media were celebrating, and the news of the Office of Strategic Deception's founding spread like wildfire online and offline. Especially after the 10 generals took the stage, the attitude among the light forces and sects instantly changed. Many of them hadn't been optimistic about the Office of Strategic Deception before, or had chosen to wait and see. Sects that didn't easily take sides chose to take the initiative to express goodwill. As a certain famous fried rice master had said, in the end, nothing could escape the law of true fragrance among them. Immortal Palm Tree sect's change was the most vigorous. It had received an invitation from the Office of Strategic Deception and had even been given the highest level of guest treatment. After all, It was currently the only sky-level second-class sect. Immortal Palm Tree Sect had also decided on its attitude toward the Office of Strategic Deception, a new force. How could it, a grand sky-level second-class sect, bow to a third-class sect and serve the rich and powerful? The Office of Strategic Deception had just been established, and a lot of sect matters weren't fully handled yet. Therefore, the Immortal Palm Tree Sect's initial attitude was to ignore it. But like all the other sects, the head of Immortal Palm Tree Sect also didn't expect that the people behind the Office of Strategic Deception would be the 10 generals. Thus, when the Immortal Palm Tree Sect received the news, the entire sect was greatly shaken. Currently, the sect leader of the Immortal Palm Tree Sect was called Sun Juolin. He was the acting sect leader hired by Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Like the professional managers of many companies, he was in charge of the normal operations of the sect. Sun Juolin and the Huaguo Water Curtain Group's Sun family were not actually related by blood. However, when he had signed the employment agreement, it had stipulated that he had to use the Sun family surname. Therefore, Juolin added the word Sun in front of his real name. Zhou was his real name. But this Zhua had nothing to do with odd Zhua family. It was also Sun Juolin who had personally signed off on the application of the indifferent strategy to the Office of Strategic Deception this time. In the end, after the 10 generals appeared, Sun Juolin was the first to panic when he heard the news. This was a very obvious strategic error. How could they afford to provoke a sect with the 10 generals behind them? In the sect leader's conference room, Sun Juolin was restless. It wasn't until he saw his male secretary push open the door and come in that he hurriedly asked, "Have the congratulations been sent? I've already let the operations department handle it." The male secretary looked at his watch. At this time, they should have all been sent out. Our Immortal Palm Tree Sect's Weibo, WeChat official accounts, all the media operations matrix. They've all posted congratulatory posts. That's good. Sun Juolin exhaled, feeling a lot more relaxed. If he didn't handle this major strategic error properly, he wouldn't be able to explain himself once the higher-up of Huaguo Water Curtain Group held him accountable. Although Immortal Palm Tree Sect was a sky-level second-class sect, if it fell short of success today, because of his conceit, he wouldn't be able to atone for his crimes even if he was killed. What about the gifts? Have they been sent? Sun Juolin was still a little worried and regretted his refusal. At the very least, he should have sent a deputy sect leader to check things out. I've already asked the Shun Phone God Express to speed up the transportation. It would probably take another half an hour, but Professor Yang of the Office of Strategic Deception's patrol team had already received the sect leader's kind intentions. It was just a pity that the sect leader hadn't arrived at the scene this time. I also followed sect leader's instructions and announced to the public that sect leader's leg was infected. There's no other way. Sun Juolin smiled bitterly. I can't say that I didn't go on purpose. I have to find an excuse. Yes. The male secretary nodded. But what? But the Office of Strategic Deception said they'll have a live interaction with sect leader later, and the 10 generals will ask sect leader about his injury. Sun Juolin was shocked. The 10 generals personally asked. Sun Juolin gritted his teeth and immediately took out a jade pool mace from his storage bag and handed it to the male secretary. Sect leader, this matter must not be exposed. Sun Juolin sat on the ground and pointed at his legs. You break all my legs. The male secretary, all of them, yes, including the one in the middle. The male secretary was startled. There's no need, sect leader. This was a ruthless person. Sun Juolin, since we're putting on an act, we have to go all the way. In any case, given my realm, I can put them back in the future. Just make sure you're clean when you do it, and don't smash them into pieces. But the one in the middle is 2. It doesn't matter. It's just 1 or 2 inches. It's not worth mentioning. On this side, just as the Immortal Palm Tree was displaying its extremely strong desire to survive, President Bai of Night Chief Zhong also received the latest news. It was intelligence from Long Ming. Lord Venerable, according to what the insects saw, the crystals set up by Liu Yoming's group have already been dismantled. Furthermore, Liu Yuming and the others have already officially confirmed their stance that they won't oppose the Office of Strategic Deception from now on. It's fine. President Bai smiled. I already knew this would happen, so the crystals I gave them were just a cover. I've already sent the current #1 person in the dark network, and with the help of Liu Yoming's group's eyes and ears, this person has already successfully infiltrated the celebration this time. #1 in the dark network? Long Ming thought of one person. Could it be? Chapter 822. Ultimate King of Killers. Who else in the dark network could match this name? Even the famous Ghost Headblade didn't have the right to carry his shoes. What was more, according to the official data released by Huaxiao Alliance, Ghost Headblade was already confirmed dead. He had been locked up in the Dead Sea of Space, and his blade body had long since corroded in the Dead Sea. He was already completely dead. President Bai also had some understanding of Ghost Headblade's cultivation technique. Unlike him, Ghost Headblade didn't have the possibility of resurrection by reversing 2 poles. Is that person going to come out of retirement? Long Ming's eyes narrowed. For some reason, when he mentioned this ultimate king of killers' name, he actually felt inexplicably excited. I'm afraid so, President Bai said. Back then, this ultimate king of killers had once led the faith of many dark sects in his most glorious days. His natural, wild, and unrestrained style won him a round of applause. Speaking of which, this ultimate king of killers also had a deep relationship with the 10 generals, because back then, ultimate king of killers had been captured alive by General E. President Qi in Explosion Saint before being sent to prison. Huaxiao Alliance's Sky Prison. This was an even more terrifying prison than Songhai First Prison. The entire prison was specially made of spirit shackles. The reason why the Old Devil and the others were currently in Songhai First Prison was because they were waiting for their trial. On the other hand, considering their previous performance in atoning for their crimes, they were given a reprieve. That was because 95% of the prisoners in Huaxiao Alliance's Sky Prison had been sentenced to death. Before Ultimate King of Killers, the biggest criminal to be locked up and sentenced to death was true Immortal Shipai. In order to invite this person, I paid a huge price, but at least the outcome was worth it. Even if I didn't use the power of Outer Dao this time, I'm afraid that this Ultimate King of Killers alone would have caused a lot of chaos. President Bai looked confident that victory was in his grasp. He had a lot of confidence in Ultimate King of Killers. After all, this was the most dangerous person to appear in Huaxiao Alliance's Sky Prison after true Immortal Shipai back then. As for this Ultimate Killer King, he created a new record. He was the only person to escape from the Sky Prison. Furthermore, he had yet to be caught, and the bounty on his head was 500 million immortal gold. At this moment, the sound of cannons in the sky above the northern square was unceasing. Even the air was filled with the unique smell of fireworks. It wasn't suffocating, but at this moment, everyone seemed to be immersed in the atmosphere of the new year. However, there seemed to be a faint killing intent in the air. It was an indistinct scent that was not clear. But after all, Wang Ling had 2 clones here. This was an absolute expert. In terms of hiding his murderous aura alone, Wang Ling thought that he could surpass more than half of the 10 generals. Among the 10 generals, only the Shadow Saint was skilled in assassination techniques and aura concealment. But at this moment, the Shadow Saint did not seem to sense the danger below. This was a great enemy who was in the dark and didn't know what was going on. Even the Office of Strategic Deception hadn't foreseen the danger. But at the moment, whether it was Ling Junren or Crispy Noodles Down Monarch, these 2 clones couldn't make a move at will. That would cause chaos on the scene. The ideal situation would be to ferret out this hidden troublemaker by himself. While Wang Ling was thinking this, the sound of the cannons rang out, and as the heavenly Dao fireworks finished blooming, a terrifying murderous aura instantly roared out from the crowd. This was a power that smelled of annihilation. One person's murderous aura could actually rival that of a magnificent army. This was the aura that only a psychopathic homicidal maniac who indulged in a sea of blood and slaughter all year round could release. This murderous aura instantly made the sect leaders present involuntarily raise their guards, and they joined hands to set up a barrier as they retreated. Who was it? The sect leaders present, as well as the media reporters, were so startled by this immense murderous aura that their hair stood on end. This murderous aura successfully cleared a path through the bustling crowd in the northern square. The sect leaders retreated to the sides, and no one dared to rashly make a move. Sect leader Liu wanted to step forward, but Professor Yang firmly held him down. Sect leader Liu, don't go. You're just throwing your life away. Everyone here had already felt the strength of the newcomer. It was only at that moment that they could clearly see the source of this murderous aura. This was an ordinary-looking old man with a fist-sized sarcoma on his chin. The skin on his face was very rough, and his deeply sunken eye sockets were like those of a ghost, giving people the creeps. The old man was wearing a pair of wooden clogs as he walked forward step by step. I'm really not used to wearing these Taoist robes. They're simply a burden. He had directly stripped off his Taoist robes to reveal a white undershirt underneath. It was very obvious that this person, most of the people present had some impression of him. And when some of the older sect leaders saw this, their expressions changed dramatically. How could it be him? My apologies, cough cough. I've disturbed everyone's mood. But I'm only here today to seek revenge, and I'm not interested in killing anyone else. The old man narrowed his eyes as he stared at the front of the stage. After all, I have a lot of opponents this time, and I need to conserve some strength. General, he stood up and hovered in the air as he stared down at the old man and snorted. I was wondering who it was. With such a fierce aura, it turns out that it's ultimate king of killers from back then. But I think your excellency must have been instructed to come here today, and you must have come prepared. I haven't seen you in so many years, but it seems that the 10 generals haven't changed at all. Unfortunately, I'm getting older and older. Ultimate King of Killers sighed, a weary look on his face. He was the first person to escape Huaxiao Alliance's sky prison, and no one could imagine what kind of price he had paid. Any cultivator who entered Huaxiao Alliance's sky prison would have their spirit energy completely restricted, and they wouldn't be able to use it at all. But this ultimate king of killers had escaped from it. Although General Yi was mocking him, the 10 generals were well aware at that moment that they couldn't underestimate this person. It was clear that the other party hadn't just been instructed to come here. He had also come prepared. Ultimate king of killers, what brings you to my office of strategic deception today? Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked. You're grenade-throwing senior immortal? The old man smiled. You seem a lot weaker than I imagined. But when all is said and done, you can't judge a book by its cover. If we fight later, I'll be the first to get rid of you. To catch a thief, first catch the king. Grenade-throwing senior immortal was very calm. Ultimate king of killers, you sure talk big. Chapter 823. This was a difficult opponent. In terms of battle strength alone, Wang Ling judged that this person should be on par with Evil Sword God. It was just that the current situation was a little tricky because it wasn't Wang Ling himself who was present, but Ling Jinren and Crispy Noodles Down Monarch, these two clones with spiritual intelligence. In terms of individual combat ability, a clone's battle strength was, in the end, limited. Furthermore, it was grenade-throwing senior immortal who had set up this situation to help Wang Ling divert attention from Ling Jinren and counterbalance his attraction to the outside world. So in this situation, Wang Ling couldn't let these two clones easily crush the other side. Otherwise, this plan would have been in vain. What was more, the 10 generals had already set their new target on grenade-throwing senior immortal. Wang Ling felt that he could make good use of this. So the main character in today's battle definitely couldn't be him or these two clones. It had to revolve around grenade-throwing senior immortal and the 10 generals. While Wang Ling was analyzing the situation through the two clones present, the atmosphere had already frozen to the extreme. An extremely powerful killing intent spread through the air, so cold that people couldn't help shivering all over. Grenade-throwing senior Immortal noticed that a layer of frost had already started to form on the ground. None of you here are my match. Ultimate King of Killers sneered, extremely confident in himself. Back then, when you captured me and threw me into prison, you didn't execute me in time. That was your biggest mistake. Now that I've escaped from prison, even this cell made of the same material as the spirit shackles can't hold me. What can you do to me? As soon as he said this, Ultimate King of Killers' words immediately caused a heated discussion among the sect leaders and the media. Many of the sky-level sect leaders sensed that something wasn't right. Given Ultimate King of Killers' character, if he sneaks into the scene, he'll definitely start a massacre and leave no one alive. But this time, the Ultimate King of Killers' target seems to be very clear. Guild leader Lou's voice deepened. Ultimate King of Killers deliberately left us and the media behind and chose to appear today. I'm afraid he already knew that the 10 generals would be here in person. Professor Yang sighed. The 10 generals absolutely couldn't let down their guard in this battle. Ultimate King of Killers had deliberately chosen the day of the Office of Strategic Deception's founding ceremony because it was the most lively day. After all, more than 70% of the sect leaders and people in charge of the entire sect circle were currently gathered in the northern square, as well as the authoritative media at the scene. Ultimate King of Killers was going to do something big in front of these people. It wasn't as simple as disrupting the ceremony. He wanted to embarrass the 10 generals in front of everyone. In theory, the Ultimate Killer King only needed to defeat one of the 10 generals to achieve his goal. But the current situation, evidently, the Killer King came prepared and had the confidence to fight against the 10 generals alone. Ultimate King of Killers, you've been on the run for many years, causing the people of Huaxiao Nation to panic. Today, this old man will be the first to directly dispose of you. General E stepped forward. General of Ling, to of General of Spirits. Of the intent, of General of Ling, of the King, of the King. He had directly opened the spirit field of the Ling. This was the spatial stratification effect of the intrinsic spirit field. General, he had directly pulled King of Killers into his own intrinsic spirit field. Logically speaking, when fighting in an intrinsic spirit field, the side who used the intrinsic spirit field first and pulled the enemy into it would definitely have the upper hand. This was because the intrinsic spirit field itself could only boost the battle strength of the spirit field's creator. Furthermore, when fighting in an intrinsic spirit field, any spell used by an outsider would continuously consume spirit energy until it was completely exhausted. But seeing General Yi's move, the other 10 generals still had grave expressions on their faces. Oldie is too impulsive. Battle St. Marshal Jiang frowned deeply. His original plan had been to suppress the other people first before making a move to ensure the safety of the venue. There was something fishy about this King of Killers, and a direct one-on-one fight would instead be a disadvantageous variable. Given Old Yi's experience and skills, even if there's something fishy about this person, he probably won't fall into a trap. Let's wait and see first. With me here, nothing will happen to Old Yi, said Luo Huaiqiu. Because the fight was taking place in the intrinsic spirit field, no one knew what on earth was going on inside. But contrary to everyone's expectations, the fight ended unexpectedly quickly. In less than 3 minutes, General E and King of Killers reappeared on the scene. The Killer King knelt on one knee as he coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. A fist-sized hole could be seen in his chest. His white robes were stained with blood as it flowed to the ground, staining the wooden clogs of the Killer King. Ha! That's all there is to it. General E shook his hand, and it instantly dispersed. General E wasn't wielding a sword, but a gas-like substance materialized in the palm of his hand. It was faintly discernible, but it was sharp and gave off a chilling pressure. Palm sword combined with boundless sword Dao. President Qi raised his eyebrows. He sighed in his heart. This King of Killers was indeed powerful. He had actually forced a Grand Blade Master to use this combination technique right from the start. Palm sword was the technique that made General E famous. The boundless sword Dao was even more so General Yi's famed special skill. The combination of the two was no different from a big move. My boundless sword Qi has already sealed off your spirit meridians and destroyed your spirit body. You won't live for long. General Yi pinched his mustache as he stared at King of Killers, who was half kneeling on the ground and vomiting blood. What a pity, he might have some other value on him. Explosion Saint shook his head. Given King of Killers' injuries, it would really be hard for him to survive. But General Yi didn't have any problems with killing him on the spot this time. Originally, according to Huaxiao Nation's regulations on managing wanted criminals, King of Killers could be killed on the spot if they refused to surrender. What was more, King of Killers' current position was already a serious threat to the lives of the masses. Hence, Ultimate King of Killers had to die. Dozens of seconds later, as General Yi had said, Ultimate King of Killers directly collapsed to the ground. His whole body was bleeding. The boundless sword Qi had wreaked havoc in this Ultimate King of Killers' body, causing it to look like a balloon full of holes as blood leaked out everywhere. Ultimate King of Killers had actually been dealt with in an instant. Countless people at the scene sucked in cold breaths of air. A lot of people didn't know what on earth had happened in the intrinsic spirit field. However, the fact that the trouble was solved so cleanly and neatly made many people feel proud and elated. It could only be said that as expected of Boundless Sword Saint, truly a treasured sword that never grew old. Just in case, I'll go and finish him off. General Yi narrowed his eyes as he stared at King of Killers' corpse on the ground, which seemed to be dead through and through. Finishing off after a battle was always a good habit, especially when it came to this kind of criminal who had to die. Even though he was now retired, General Yi still maintained his former vigilance and carefulness. But just as General Yi approached King of Killers' corpse and was about to finish him off on the ground, Ultimate King of Killers' corpse actually instantly turned into a wisp of black Qi, which entered General Yi's body. Almost in an instant, General Yi's eyes turned black, and his body was no longer floating in the air, but firmly planted on the ground. Chapter 824. General Yi had been restrained, which was a surprise to everyone at the scene. That's impossible. Battle Saint Marshal Jiang shook his head. Blade Master cultivates boundless sword Dao all year round, and his sword heart is clear. It's impossible for an external object to invade him. Marshal Jiang couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Among the 10 generals who knew Blade Master the best, as an enemy who had sparred with General Yi all year round, Marshal Jiang believed that his familiarity and understanding of General Yi was second only to his understanding of himself. The conditions for cultivating boundless sword Dao were very harsh, and one couldn't have the slightest bit of evil thoughts. In order to cultivate boundless sword Dao back then, General Yi had suffered a lot. To be able to endure what ordinary people couldn't, this was the demeanor of a general. Battle Saint, the facts are already in front of us. There's no point in denying it. Explosion Saint frowned. This King of Killers is a little strange. I think that when you fight him, remember not to get close to him. It should be safer to use a long-range attack. Sister Luo, can you tell what spell this King of Killers is using? Marshal Jiang frowned deeply and finally asked in a low voice. In fact, the moment Medicine Saint saw General Yi being controlled, he had already used the mind-clearing spell, but unfortunately, it had no effect. The moment old Yi was controlled, I used the level 7 mind-clearing spell in an attempt to purify his abnormal state, but the spell wasn't very effective, Medicine Saint said. I can only conclude now that this isn't an abnormal spell. The 10 generals' faces turned a little unsightly. All sorts of unreasonable facts told them that this Ultimate King of Killers indeed wasn't simple. Ultimate King of Killers, did you deliberately choose today to take revenge for being imprisoned in the sky prison in front of these sect leaders and the media? I waited a long time for this day. King of Killers' voice sounded a little out of place as it came from General Yi's body. Your plan hasn't succeeded. President Qi stepped forward and said, the moment you attacked old Yi, I used the brain deduction technique to brainwash everyone behind you. Now, they'll see you vomiting blood as old E punches you out of your intrinsic spirit field, and this image will play in their minds in a constant brainwashing loop. Grenade-throwing senior immortal, Wang Ling. President Xi's words caused King of Killers' pupils to contract slightly, and then he sneered. As expected of wisdom, Saint. Apart from old E, you were also a good facilitator when I was locked up in the heavenly prison back then. After speaking until here, the Killer King waved his hand. However, it doesn't matter. I remember that your brain deduction technique will be interrupted as long as your body is seriously injured or dead. So today, none of you will be able to escape. All of you will die. However, before I make my move, I have something to remind everyone. The 10 generals' expressions froze when they heard that. Ultimate King of Killers said expressionlessly, I am currently borrowing General Yi's body. Everyone attacking me is the same as attacking General Yi. Killer King, this move of yours is too despicable. The martial saint was infuriated. The victor is the king. Everything else is nonsense. The ultimate Killer King laughed. Taking a deep breath, Battle Saint stared at King of Killers with blazing eyes, clearly enraged. Even if Oldie falls for it, we 10 generals aren't to be trifled with. We are the elites of Huaxiao Nation. Elites? The ultimate Killer King grinned maliciously. The ones I'm fighting are the elites. As soon as he said that, he opened his hand, and the air in front of him instantly distorted. In an instant, he controlled General Yi's figure to disappear along with Marshal Jiang. What kind of spell is this? Grenade-throwing senior immortal was already completely stupefied. That move just now was clearly General Yi's intrinsic spirit field, and the ultimate Killer King of Killers was actually able to use General Yi's spell while borrowing a body. Brother Ling, what should we do? Grenade-throwing senior immortal turned his head to look at Ling Jinren on his left, and then at Crispy Noodles Dow Monarch on his right as he asked telepathically. This King of Killers had come too strangely. Grenade-throwing senior immortal couldn't think of anyone else who could control the entire situation except Wang Ling. The truth was that Wang Ling already knew about the King of Killers spell. It was just that he couldn't say it out loud. This wasn't an ordinary body-borrowing spell, because it was an abnormal spell that could be neutralized by the mind-clearing spell. What Ultimate Killer King of Killers had used was a more powerful special spell called the Anti-Last Hit spell, which was based on the body-borrowing spell. What had really caused General E to fall wasn't his terrifying attack, but the last hit. This was a spell that could be used in a near-death state to counterattack. When the caster was on the verge of death, as long as they sensed the malice of the last hit, they could temporarily devour the soul of the person who struck them, and thus borrow a body. So, when all was said and done, this anti-last hit spell was just a slightly more advanced possession technique, because it was a relatively unpopular spell. Very few people knew about it. But coincidentally, Wang Ling also knew how to use it. Furthermore, Wang Ling's possession technique was fancy. He could possess whoever he wanted, and there was no need to go through so much trouble. Thus, in the next moment, Wang Ling controlled Crispy Noodles Dow Monarch's clone to place his hand on Grenade-throwing senior immortal's shoulder. Using a clone to transfer a soul to a body wasn't a particularly difficult technique to use. Although he was still in the middle of a class, today was the sect's founding ceremony. Since someone had come to make trouble, as the head of Crispy Noodles Hall. Oh no, as the head of Leisure Hall, Grenade-throwing senior immortal should do his part. In any case, it would only take 2 minutes to end the fight. A few seconds later, when Wang Ling's soul successfully transferred into Grenade-throwing senior immortal's body, Grenade-throwing senior immortal's aura changed dramatically. Being possessed was a very wonderful feeling. Grenade-throwing senior immortal remembered that the last time he had been possessed was when he had been dealing with Evil Sword God. Back then, he had been possessed by Lord Jinka. And now, he was being attacked by his best brother. Grenade-throwing senior immortal felt so blessed. When the 10 generals sensed the change in Grenade-throwing senior immortal's aura, they were all greatly shocked. Who would have thought that everything would turn out to be true? It turned out that this great death-courting senior really was a hidden expert. There was no need for words to explain everything. "I'll be right back." After grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Wang Ling merged, it was still grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's voice, but Wang Ling was already the master of the body. Under everyone's stupefied gazes, they saw this deeply hidden great death-courting senior directly tear open the space in front of him with a wave of his hand, and step into the intrinsic spirit field which King of Killers had taken over Wang Ling's body at that moment. Marshal Jiang was already engaged in a bitter battle in the intrinsic spirit field. Chapter 825. This was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's second time being possessed by a big shot. Although he felt a little nauseous overall as a result of the rejection between the soul and the body, it was basically still within his tolerance range. There was a limit to how long a person could possess a body. It was like holding one's breath in water. Once the limit was reached, the soul and the body would automatically separate. Usually, the longest time a person could possess a body was 5 minutes. This was very different from the Ultimate Killer King's body borrowing technique. The essence of body borrowing was a high-level movement technique. It wasn't bound by time. But for Wang Ling, it didn't make a difference whether he had 5 minutes or not. In any case, this battle would end in less than 3 minutes. When Wang Ling succeeded in possessing a body, he used grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body to tear open the space and step onto the battlefield. He saw a sword light slash down like a blazing sun, overbearing and imposing with boundless might that no one could look directly at. In all the martial arts in the world, only speed was unbeatable. This was especially true of this sword technique, which contained the profound meaning of boundless sword Tao. Any demon or evil spirit would be scared out of their wits by this sword. Although grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body was under Wang Ling's control, he could clearly see what was happening in front of him. This was a showdown between true immortals. If it wasn't for Wang Ling controlling his body, a mere soul formation cultivator like him wouldn't have been able to stand his ground at all. What kind of powerful technique was this? The scene in front of him was even more shocking than when he had fought Evil Sword God back then. Because when he had fought Evil Sword God back then, it had been a pure one-sided defeat. But now, it was a showdown between a Blade Master and a Warrior Saint. Although King of Killers had manipulated this showdown, and they had been forced to fight, it was still extremely shocking. In the face of the monstrous, boundless sword intent, Marshal Jiang frowned and reacted almost instantly. He placed his thumbs in his mouth and bit down hard. In the next moment, his arms actually expanded explosively, becoming hundreds of times larger. They were like 2 pieces of divine metal that came from the heavens, and even his skin turned a deep and dazzling black. He controlled his arms to cross them in front of him, and the boundless sword intent slashed down on his strengthened arms with a heavy sound like divine iron striking each other. The ground cracked as the boundless sword intent and Marshal Jiang's arms collided with a scorching energy that instantly incinerated the ground and turned it into blazing magma. Marshal Jiang no longer had a foothold, so he could only float in the air and fight. And this was the most dangerous moment. General Yi's intrinsic spirit field could transform everything in it into sword intent. Battle Saint, you've fallen into my trap. King of Killers smiled slightly as he manipulated General Yi's body to activate the boundless sword intent. With just a crook of his finger, the blazing magma on the ground instantly transformed into millions of fire swords that shot toward Marshal Jiang. He didn't hold back at all. This was a method to put Marshal Jiang to death. Clearly, Marshal Jiang had also noticed the cruelty of this ultimate killer king. Because of the fact that the Sword Saint was being possessed, he had been forced to defend himself and did not dare to attack directly. However, the current situation made him feel that the possession technique was strange. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that after being possessed by the Sword Saint, the power he could exert was much stronger than before. Among the 10 generals, he had the most opportunities to fight with the Sword Saint, so he should know the Sword Saint situation like the back of his hand. At that moment, millions of fire swords attacked him, each one aimed at his heart. Marshal Jiang waved his godly arms to stop them, but these fire swords were too nimble. "Brother Ling, it's time." Grenade-throwing senior immortal urged Wang Ling. Marshal Jiang's current situation was really too dangerous. Wang Ling just gave a light answer. He took a step forward. There was a thunderous rumble as several bolts of heavenly lightning directly smashed the millions of fire swords to pieces, forcing Marshal Jiang and King of Killers to look in the direction of the sound of the thunder. It wasn't just Marshal Jiang. Even Ultimate King of Killers was extremely astonished, because they hadn't sensed that someone else had actually appeared in the intrinsic spirit field. Senior Immortal, when did you come in? Not long ago, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. In fact, it was Wang Ling who was speaking. He was currently in control of the body, but the voice was still Grenade-throwing Senior Immortals. So Marshal Jiang and Ultimate King of Killers didn't suspect anything. Wang Ling didn't like to talk at first, but considering that he was now pretending to be Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and that he was in the latter's body to act cool, he still had to play along, otherwise it wouldn't have any effect. It was clear that Marshal Jiang and Ultimate King of Killers were stupefied by Wang Ling's words. He had come in not long ago. They hadn't sensed him at all. And most importantly, after Marshal Jiang had been sucked into the intrinsic spirit field, this Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had come in again? How is that possible? How did Senior Immortal come in? Marshal Jiang was utterly stupefied. Is it very difficult to tear space with your hands? Wang Ling manipulated Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body and tilted his neck. Hearing this, Ultimate King of Killers and Marshal Jiang sucked in cold breaths of air. Tearing space with his hands, easy to say, but the technical difficulty of this thing was quite high. Furthermore, tearing space wasn't an ordinary space, and most true immortals had the ability to tear space to travel through it. But tearing space to enter an alternate space was different. It was on a completely different level of difficulty. It's so hot. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at the ground. Because the collision of two true immortals had turned the ground of the intrinsic spirit field into magma, he really did feel a little hot. You should be feeling hot too, right? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked as he looked at Marshal Jiang next to him. Marshal Jiang nodded. A little, but at true immortal level, I'm very resistant to heat. Although I'm sweating, I won't feel very hot. Since it's hot, don't make a big fuss. Isn't it better to fight like a Buddha? Wang Ling was doing his best to speak in a tone that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was familiar with to avoid arousing suspicion. Marshal Jiang was taken aback by this question. You're right, Immortal, I saw that you were fighting for so long without any results, so I came in to take a look. Anyway, thank you, Senior Immortal. You've been a great help. You and I will fight together. You just need to restrain old Yi's body and leave the rest to me. Too troublesome. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shook his head. Marshal Jiang. Then Senior Immortal means, at that moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal fixed his gaze on the ground and sighed softly. It was just a sigh, but the magma on the ground actually froze in an instant. While Marshal Jiang and King of Killers were still in a daze, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already appeared in front of King of Killers at some point. Hey, where are you looking at? He was really too fast. Before King of Killers could come back to his senses, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already flicked him on the forehead. Pa! There was a crisp sound, and General Yi's body flew out like a meteor, piercing through several giant mountains in a row. In his own body, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal let Wang Ling do as he pleased. He felt that he had really learned something. It turned out that acting cool was also a huge field of study. If he had gone into battle himself, he definitely wouldn't have felt this way, as expected of his dearest Brother Ling. Brother Ling, you're so cool. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal kept cheering for Wang Ling in his body. Please use my body to your heart's content, Brother Ling. Don't pity me just because I'm a broccoli. Chapter 826. It was always difficult for people to believe in things that were beyond their understanding, and more often than not, they would rather believe in things that were within their abilities. So when King of Killers got up from the ground, he was in a bad mood. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's sudden appearance and his strength, which was so strong that it couldn't be described in words, had already far exceeded his expectations. It was just a light flick, but he had actually pierced through more than 10 small mountains in a flash. Marshal Jiang also felt that this scene was inconceivable. At that moment, Marshal Jiang took a deep breath. Based on their discussion on the immortal worship earlier, he had deduced that this grenade-throwing Senior Immortal wasn't a simple person. But when he saw his explosive strength with his own eyes, this renowned battle, Saint couldn't help trembling. If it wasn't for Ultimate King of Killers, the 10 generals might not even know what kind of player this was. But at the same time, Marshal Jiang was also puzzled. Logically speaking, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already hidden his strength very well. Then, why had he chosen to lay his cards on the table in front of everyone on an occasion like today? Of course, maybe the situation wasn't as complicated as Marshal Jiang thought. Today was the Office of Strategic Deception's sect celebration. Someone had come to cause trouble, so it was reasonable for the sect leader to make a move. This was Marshal Jiang's explanation. Ultimate King of Killers admitted that he had never been in such a sorry state before. After piercing through a series of mountains, he landed heavily on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. When he stood up, he could even feel his legs trembling uncontrollably. It had to be said that this was Blade Master's body. Even if he hadn't deliberately set up a barrier to protect himself, he still had invisible protective sword chi around him. Logically speaking, if he had just hit the ground, he shouldn't have felt any pain. But that flick just now had hit his soul. Blade Master's body looked unscathed, but Ultimate King of Killers felt like he was about to lose his life. When Ultimate King of Killers raised his head, the devil-like figure appeared in front of him again, startling him so much that he broke out in a cold sweat. "Do you want to continue?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said lightly. He hadn't seen the movement at all, and that flick on the forehead earlier was also... Ultimate King of Killers seriously suspected that he might be blind. As someone who came from the King of Killers and was ranked number 1 in the Dark Network, it was impossible for him to not know such a simple ocular technique like motion capture. But as it turned out, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's movements were simply too fast. He was simply too fast for Wang Ling's eyes to take in. The Ultimate Killer King couldn't help but admit that out of all the opponents he had encountered so far, this was the strangest fellow. This grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's aura just now was clearly at the soul formation stage. It absolutely couldn't be fake. But all of a sudden, it was as if he had become another person. So he had been concealing his strength on purpose? During these years as the Killer King, he had seen too many experts. Whether someone was intentionally hiding their strength or not, the Ultimate Killer King could tell with a single glance. As the Ultimate King of Killers, this was a special ability that he was born with. In the pugilistic world, knowing yourself and your enemy was the key to victory. In order to prepare for today's revenge plan, he had not hesitated to cooperate with Night Chief. Dealing with the 10 generals and humiliating them one by one was something he was extremely confident about. He was the Ultimate Killer King. He would never do a losing business, nor would he make a plan without preparation. But he never expected that this chief of the Office of Strategic Deception, the pugilistic world's great death-courting senior, would actually become an invisible variable. "Do you want to continue?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked again. "Interesting, really interesting. It's been a long time since I've met such an interesting person." The Killer King laughed maniacally. At the same time, he already had a countermeasure in his heart. Right now, the first thing he needed to do was to restrict his opponent's movements. The Killer King felt that the reason he lost was because he couldn't see his opponent's movements clearly. Since the other party's strength lay in speed, there was no need to fight him head-on. Just put some distance between them and restrict their attacks. This was a standard battle strategy. Ultimate King of Killers had experienced countless battles and was able to adapt quickly based on what happened in different battles. He had experience that a lot of people didn't have. This was also why it had been so difficult to catch him back then. Ultimate King of Killers had once held a position in Magnificent Immortal, and during that time, he had developed a powerful anti-reconnaissance ability. Actually, Ultimate King of Killers also had a nickname, the Shame of Magnificent Immortal. Wang Ling stared at Ultimate King of Killers calmly. He still had plenty of time. It had actually only taken him 30 seconds from entering the arena to flicking the other party's forehead. At that moment, Ultimate King of Killers used his intrinsic spirit field to pull away as much as he could. At the same time, Wang Ling suddenly felt an extra pressure on his shoulders. Gravity control. Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. It was very obvious that Ultimate King of Killers wanted to restrict his movements. Unfortunately, this gravitational force had no effect on him. As for the Ultimate Killer King, he had no idea what sort of opponent he was facing exactly. After pulling away, he stood in the air and continuously added additional effects to himself. Boundless Sword Dao, 8-foot sword circle. Boundless Sword Dao, sword power amplification. Boundless Sword Dao, blade amplification. Boundless Sword Dao, sword chi backlash. Boundless Sword Dao, anti-demon stance. Boundless Sword Dao, invincible sword chi. In a short dozen or so seconds, Ultimate King of Killers borrowed General Yi's body to do whatever he wanted, adding more than a dozen amplification effects to himself. These were all powers derived from Boundless Sword Dao, and Wang Ling was a little apprehensive at the sight of them. It wasn't because he was afraid, but because these amplifications sword chi densely surrounded Ultimate King of Killers like a spiderweb, and Wang Ling's trypophobia was about to flare up. With so many buffs, is this your final struggle? I've underestimated you before, but don't blame me if you die in the next wave of attacks. I am Ultimate King of Killers, and I never kill nameless people, Ultimate King of Killers said in a low voice. Ultimate King of Killers didn't hold back anymore. He had originally wanted to slowly torture Battle Saint to death in this intrinsic spirit field, but he never expected such a variable to appear. If this battle dragged on any longer, it would only be disadvantageous to him. Initially, his target for revenge had only been the 10 generals, and he had only promised Knight Chief to get rid of this chief of the Office of Strategic Deception in passing. In other words, he could have given this great death-courting senior a quick death. But now, Ultimate King of Killers swore that if he won this battle, he would leave this chief of strategic deception alive and then torture him for 81 days with everything he had learned about killing. I'm going to torture you to death. King of Killers still slashed out with all his might. The blade of his sword instantly expanded as it slashed through the air, forming a sword pillar that connected the sky as it shot forward with unstoppable force. The momentum of this sword strike was tremendous. However, Wang Ling just sighed. It was just a sigh, but with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body as the center, an exceptionally purifying sound wave spread out in all directions like the cries of millions of birds, making one's scalp go numb. All of the attacks instantly turned into a stream of air and dissipated without a trace. Even the dozen or so amplification sword chi around King of Killers disappeared in that instant. This is Battle Saint and King of Killers were dumbfounded. It's just the effect of observation hockey combined with abnormal sound waves. Borrowing grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body, Wang Ling replied, I call it the abnormal sound wave observation spell. Marshal Jiang, King of Killers, your turn is over. Shouldn't it be my turn? The next second, Wang Ling's eyes were fixed on King of Killers. Chapter 827. At that moment, the look in Wang Ling's eyes was already different from before because he didn't have much time left. He had paused for a bit to see what else this legendary Ultimate King of Killers could do. But in the end, he was greatly disappointed. The number one of the Dark Network was only at this level. This look caused Ultimate King of Killers' spirit to instantly collapse to the extreme. Judging from that finger flick at the very beginning, the other party seemed to have a way to directly suppress the soul without harming the body. to be able to use such a method. How could such a person be an ordinary person? Moreover, it wasn't difficult for the ultimate king of killers to determine that the other party had already seen through the technique he was using to borrow a body. The counter last hit was a forbidden technique that was widely known in the Western world's dark web. In the Western world, there was an ancient book that recorded all forbidden techniques called the Bible of Darkness. Back then, in order to obtain this technique, the ultimate king of killers had paid a huge price. The anti-last hit spell was one of the forbidden spells in the Dark Bible. Of course, under normal circumstances, only those who had read the Bible of Darkness would understand this spell. As expected, this grenade-throwing senior immortal was a man of substance, but there was already no point in thinking about this in his mind. Ultimate King of Killers knew that this was a battle he had to face. And in order to face this battle, the first thing he had to do was he had to circulate his chi and dry the underwear this damn body was wearing. Grenade-throwing senior immortal had just glanced at him, and he was instantly drenched in cold sweat. His clothes were sticking to his skin, which made Ultimate King of Killers very uncomfortable. For Ultimate King of Killers, killing was an art. Since it was an art, he had to carry out every killing job with sincerity and beauty. Thus, Ultimate King of Killers started to build up chi. Scorching hot, true immortal chi was released from his body, and for a moment, it made a sizzling sound like an electric iron sweeping over a hot plate. However, Wang Ling already couldn't wait. He didn't know what this Ultimate King of Killers was doing, and he wasn't interested in waiting for the other party to finish. For Wang Ling, resolving the battle in front of him was his top priority. The next second, grenade-throwing senior immortal's figure flashed, and he actually directly disappeared. Then, he reappeared on the horizon and turned into a fiery meteor as he charged in Ultimate King of Killers' direction. The strong wind pressure instantly covered the entire land. This was clearly the home field of General Yi's intrinsic spirit field, but at that moment, Wang Ling had directly turned the tables on him. The sudden action caused the Ultimate Killer King to be caught unprepared. His underwear hadn't been dried yet. This was not beautiful at all. On the horizon, grenade-throwing senior immortal turned into a meteor and fell. It was like a nuclear bomb had landed on the ground. The wind pressure directly caused the Ultimate Killer King's neck to bend. After that, he couldn't even open his eyes. His entire person was like a toad suppressed by the Buddha's palm, lying on the ground. Marshal Jiang exclaimed in amazement. What kind of precise attack technique was this? It was clearly a large-scale AoE attack, but Marshal Jiang didn't feel any pressure at all other than the power of the wind. This was enough to prove that when grenade-throwing senior immortal had cast a spell, he had already launched a targeted attack, and had poured all the pressure into Ultimate Killer King of Killers. Ultimate Killer King of Killers was completely powerless to resist this enormous pressure. He could only lie on the ground, tilt his neck slightly, and squint his eyes to barely see this shocking scene in the sky, which was like an epic divine punishment descending. It was clearly just a person, but in his eyes, this person was like a planet about to hit the earth. As the other party fell, the space behind him actually cracked inch by inch, and a long and narrow hole appeared, pressing straight in his direction. I never thought Ultimate Killer King of Killers, would die here. In that instant, Ultimate Killer King of Killers' mind was already spinning as he recalled his previous body. He was certain that this grenade-throwing senior immortal was going to destroy him along with General Yi's body. Such a powerful move was about to hit him, and it would probably be too late to withdraw it. Ultimate Killer King of Killers sneered cruelly. If he withdrew from General Yi's body at this time and let General Yi experience death for himself, what would happen? A few seconds later, everyone waiting anxiously in the outside world saw grenade-throwing senior immortal, Marshal Jiang, and General Yi walk out of the intrinsic spirit field unscathed. While Ultimate Killer King of Killers had possessed General Yi, his soul had been imprisoned. He couldn't control his body, but he could clearly see what was happening in the outside world. When he had seen grenade-throwing senior immortal's palm strike, he had thought he was going to die. What was even more hateful was that at the last moment, Ultimate Killer King of Killers had chosen to return to his original body, voluntarily giving up his body to General. Thus, the instant General Yi's underwear returned to his body, he was scared out of his wits. But overall, the ending could be considered satisfactory. In the end, Wang Ling had taken control of Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body and used that move, which looked like he was going all out to kill King of Killers, was actually to force Ultimate Killer King of Killers to back off and give up his body position, abbreviated body position. Hence, from the very beginning, Wang Ling had been forcing Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body and hadn't planned to land at all. The instant before the blow was about to land, Wang Ling had withdrawn all his strength. It could be said that everything had been within Wang Ling's calculations. That's impossible. On the other side, Ultimate Killer King of Killers, who had returned to his body, had a look of utter disbelief on his face. That blow just now had wild godly power that was enough to destroy a true immortal's body. How could he have withdrawn it at the last second? This was far beyond Ultimate Killer King of Killers' expectations, as well as General Yi and Marshal Jiang, who had witnessed everything at the scene. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was really a ridiculously strong man. In all these years, this powerful man had actually been showing himself to people as a soul formation cultivator. What kind of forbearance and low-key spirit was this? The 10 generals should all learn from him. Ultimate Killer King of Killers, what else do you have to say? General Yi stared at Ultimate Killer King of Killers. This time, he wasn't in a hurry to make a move, because he was worried that Ultimate Killer King of Killers would use the anti-last hit spell again. But he also didn't have to worry about Ultimate Killer King of Killers escaping. For one thing, a barrier had already been set up in the venue. For another, Ultimate Killer King of Killers had deliberately allowed General Yi to severely injure him in order to use the anti-last hit spell. Now that Ultimate Killer King of Killers had returned to his heavily injured body, it was almost impossible for him to escape in this situation. Overall, the incident had come to a successful conclusion. While the 10 generals were discussing how to deal with Ultimate Killer King of Killers, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent Wang Ling a message of thanks. Brother Ling, thank you so much. Thank you for your help. But Wang Ling didn't reply, because at that moment, Wang Ling was called out by Teacher Pan in class. During Teacher Pan's Tao Talisman's lesson, Wang Ling had spent several minutes guiding his soul into Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's body, which had caused his original body to look a little sluggish. When Teacher Pan called him out to answer a question, Wang Ling hadn't been able to stand up in time to reply. When Wang Ling came back to his senses, Teacher Pan had already called him out 3 times now. It was the 4th time. Student Wang Ling, you're absent-minded in class. It's almost time for the final exams. It looks like I need to contact your parents. Chapter 828. A teacher in charge summoning a parent was a common technique used by teacher in charge to dominate the world. Usually, when a student's parents were called, their software would become unstable. But sometimes, it was surprisingly effective to ask the student to correct his or her attitude. Middle school was a rebellious period, and teachers would be disgusted if they called their parents. In high school, the situation was slightly better, especially in the elite class. Teacher Pan always thought that children in the elite class should have strong psychological endurance. Of course, in many cases, teacher in charge calling a parent was purely a scare tactic. As long as the student's attitude was good, the matter would be over. But Teacher Pan was different. As a pioneer teacher at number 60 high school, it could only be said that Teacher Pan was in the end Teacher Pan. When Teacher Pan called a parent, she was serious. Furthermore, it was the kind that meant what she said. Wang Ling understood Teacher Pan's personality too well. After all, he had been in contact with her for almost a semester. Teacher Pan had chosen to call a parent at a time like this because she wanted to make an example of him in class. But Wang Ling really couldn't refute her, nor did he have any way to do so, because he had really been absent-minded at that time. If he had known earlier, he would have solved the problem quickly. Wang Ling had thought that Ultimate King of Killers would do something outrageous and had wanted to wait and see. But in the end, he was greatly disappointed. Wang Ling decided that if he ran into a similar situation in the future, it would be better to directly solve the problem with a slap. The current situation had become troublesome again, as the mascot of Grade 1, Class 3, who had just escaped from the gates of hell a while ago. Wang Ling felt that Teacher Pan shouldn't be treating him like this. Couldn't she be a little more concerned about a poor little thing like him? However, Teacher Pan's reprimand was very effective. When they heard that Wang Ling's parents were going to be called, Dopey Gua and Super Chun, who had been happily passing notes on the side, immediately froze when they heard the news and straightened their backs like terracotta warriors. In the end, Teacher Pan's last Tao Talismans class of the semester ended in a harmonious and quiet atmosphere. After class, Teacher Pan returned to the office with the test papers. Super Chun took the lead, and everyone stepped forward to pat Wang Ling on the shoulder. Super Chun, a moment of silence, my Ling Dopey, a moment of silence, little peanut. A moment of silence for classmate Wang Ling. By the way, your parents probably won't hit you. After thinking for a bit, Wang Ling wanted to say that they couldn't beat them, but in the end didn't say it. Father and Mother Wang indeed wouldn't hit him. First of all, any kind of violence is wrong behavior. Especially when educating children, we should understand reason and move them with emotion. The most important thing was to communicate well. If people in this world could explain and understand each other, they should be able to avoid a lot of disasters, right? For example, the bus plunging into the river a while ago was a classic case. The world was so beautiful. Why did he have to be so violent? This wasn't Teacher Pan's first time looking for Wang Ling's parents. After all, she had come to the Wang family's small villa for a special visit before. Furthermore, it had been Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal who had attended the parent-teacher meeting on her behalf. In exchange, Wang Ling had guarded the stone ghost mask for Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal in the villa against the 10 Saints. If Teacher Pan had just called Father Wang, things wouldn't have been so troublesome. Ever since Teacher Pan had visited the Wang family's small villa last time, she had specially kept Old Man Wang's phone number. This time, she had called him directly, so there was no way she could pretend to be him. Thus, when Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal found out about this, he was quite helpless. Brother Ling, have a safe trip. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sent Wang Ling a message. Wang Ling, in Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's memory, Old Man Wang was the strongest in the Wang family's small villa. Furthermore, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had been comprehending the mystery of broccoli until now. After school, the matter of Ultimate King of Killers was more or less settled. Because of the 10 generals' presence and Wang Ling's help, the sect's founding ceremony had gone smoothly overall. As for this little episode of King of Killers, in the end, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, the chief of the Office of Strategic Deception, had personally taken him down, so the overall outcome could be considered satisfactory. But because the outside world hadn't seen what had happened in the intrinsic spirit field, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and the 10 generals had unanimously said in the news media that Ultimate King of Killers had been defeated by General E. But the 10 generals had seen the truth of the entire matter from beginning to end. They had all clearly seen how strong this new chief of the Office of Strategic Deception, the legendary Great Death Courting Senior, was. After this, the Office of Strategic Deception and Huashu Alliance were bound to work even more closely together, and Huashu Alliance itself was the Office of Strategic Deception's biggest investor. Wang Ling realized that given Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's current strength and frequent contact with these experts, he would be in danger of being exposed sooner or later. So Wang Ling decided to give him a little push in the back. It was just that even Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal himself didn't know about this. It was the Office of Strategic Deception's banquet that evening. Wang Ling had originally planned to go and take a look, but because Teacher Pan was going to call home, he could only stay put for the night. The banquet was different from the celebration in the afternoon. The media reporters and sects below sky level wouldn't attend. Those who could attend the Office of Strategic Deception's banquet were all sky level sections. Because they had to deal with ultimate king of killers, the 10 generals were especially cautious. Only General Yi and Marshal Jiang were left behind at the scene, while the other 8 people went to keep an eye on ultimate king of killers. While it might seem like they had mobilized a large force, it was in fact absolutely necessary. As the Dark Network's #1 player, this could be considered giving Ultimate King of Killers one last bit of face. The Ultimate King of Killers was now hanging on by a thread. Just like Wang Zhen, who had been restricted by the Heavenly Tao, he couldn't use any magic at all. This was because at the last moment, when Wang Ling had lifted the soul transfer, he had imposed a Heavenly Tao seal on Ultimate King of Killers. Right now, the Ultimate Killer King no longer had the strength to struggle. The reason why the 10 generals didn't directly execute the Killer King was because they still wanted to use the Killer King to uncover the mastermind behind him. Although the 10 generals already knew who the mastermind was, the banquet was about to start, and Dog 2 and Little Silver were sitting in the inner area. Loopy Toad, what's on tonight? Woof. Little Silver covered his mouth and said very quietly, appetizer, Heavenly Tao broccoli assorted salad. Chinese dishes, broccoli spaghetti, braised broccoli soups, broccoli fresh vegetable soup, desserts, Heavenly Tao broccoli ice cream. Of course, there are other dishes, but the ones I just mentioned are definitely available. Loopy Toad looked relieved. It didn't know why, but when it heard about broccoli, it was as calm as an ancient well. Broccoli green plants. He was also green. How amiable. Everyone, this Heavenly Tao broccoli was developed and grown by my Office of Strategic Deception. I'll eat it first as a sign of respect. After saying that, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal picked up a broccoli and put it in his mouth. All the guests stared at the broccoli-assorted salad in front of them with tasteless expressions, but in the next moment, just as Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal swallowed the broccoli in his mouth, there was a huge explosion in the sky. Chapter 829. This explosion of the Heavenly Tao caught everyone off guard. All the cultivators in every corner of the planet, even those at the Foundation establishment stage, felt a resonating power at this moment. It was as if a divine aura that originated from beyond the heavens was reaching out and gently caressing their heads. This feeling was incomparably wonderful, and there was actually a kind of numbing pain and pleasure. This feeling was felt by almost all cultivators. The only difference was that those with lower realms, such as the Foundation establishment and Golden Core cultivators, although they felt this way, they did not know what was happening. The wind and clouds had changed. Some people had broken through to the true immortal realm, but they did not directly become a celestial paragon. Instead, they were approaching the realm of a celestial paragon. According to ancient texts, this realm was also known as half-step paragon or true paragon. It was a realm that was stronger than a true immortal, but weaker than a celestial paragon. The formation of true venerables was very rare. The records in the ancient books were very limited, even fewer than the records of immortal venerables. Due to the thinning of the spiritual energy on Earth, all the countries had signed the Perfected Immortal Convention, which required all the countries to jointly seal their realms and prevent perfected immortals from becoming immortal venerables. This was because advancing to the immortal venerable realm would consume a huge amount of the Earth's spiritual energy. Once the Earth's spiritual energy was exhausted, the era of cultivators might be gone forever. Given the accumulation of the 10 generals, including the head of state, they were all qualified to ascend to the immortal venerable realm. However, due to the restrictions of the convention, the upper limit of their cultivation realm was sealed. In recent years, the key joint research project of various countries was to find a way to break through from perfected immortal to venerable immortal without weakening the basic spiritual power of Earth. However, to everyone's surprise, someone actually managed to break through to the true immortal realm on this day. Although he hadn't reached the level of a celestial venerate, he was still stronger than a true immortal. Most importantly, the true venerated realm was a guarantee for future advancement. Because after reaching the true sovereign realm, The difficulty of advancing to the celestial sovereign realm would be greatly reduced, and the success rate would be 80 to 90%. Many void refinement realm, rogue immortal realm, and even true immortal realm experts immediately understood what was happening at this moment and the great significance that it would bring in the future. This person was probably the first person in the modern history of the world to break through the true immortal realm and reach the ninth stage true venerable realm. But who is this person? For a moment, many cultivators raised their questions. This kind of advancement did not even have any signs. It was too strange. On the other side, President Bai, who had successfully replaced Night Ghost Spirit Emperor as the new leader of Night Chief, had an ugly expression on his face. Someone had become a true sovereign. This was definitely bad news for Night Chief. Most importantly, Wang Dao Master's whereabouts were currently unknown. No one knew where he had run off to. Previously, he said that he was going to teach the thief a lesson, but in the end, there was no trace of Dao Master Wang. As for Ultimate King of Killers, President Bai had just received intelligence that Ultimate King of Killers' operation had failed and had suffered a crushing defeat. For some reason, President Bai felt a little uneasy, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. Who was it that became a grade 9 true venerable? For a time, it became a big question on a global scale. But this riddle was completely seen by the heads of the major sects, General Yi and Marshal Jiang, as they ate at the banquet. Right after he took a bite of the heavenly Dao broccoli salad, there was the sound of a heavenly Dao explosion. Then, under everyone's stupefied gazes, grenade-throwing senior immortal. He turned into light. For a moment, all the guests covered their eyes. This was the light of heavenly Dao, which was far more intense than the light of the solar fist. General Yi and Marshal Jiang couldn't see through this light to clearly see grenade-throwing senior immortal's current appearance. Even sect leader Su Xing, who had inadvertently awakened heavenly Dao, couldn't clearly see what was happening. The number of heavenly Dao he had awakened was limited, and he couldn't see through the phenomenon to its essence. Marshal Jiang covered his eyes. He felt like he was going to be blinded. "Oldie, it can't be wrong," General Yi said. "The two of us have a deep understanding of senior immortal strength, but we never thought that he would actually comprehend heavenly Dao and become a true venerable just by relying on a broccoli. Grade 9 true venerable. Reach senior immortal just like that?" Marshal Jiang was utterly shaken. "But could it be? I know what you're worried about." General Yi knew that Marshal Jiang was worried about the true immortal convention. The convention did indeed say that all true immortals couldn't advance to venerated immortal by consuming Earth's inherent spirit energy, but it didn't say that they couldn't advance to true venerated immortal. Putting aside the fact that this was between the two realms, there wasn't any violation at all. The most important thing was that grenade-throwing senior immortal hadn't extracted any of Earth's spirit energy when he advanced to true venerated immortal. If he had really extracted Earth's spirit energy to advance, there would definitely have been a huge torrent of spirit energy here, and even a destructive spatial vortex. Thus, to advance to the venerated immortal realm, one usually had to find an uninhabited place to do it alone. It seemed that grenade-throwing senior immortal had really relied on a broccoli to advance, although a lot of people didn't want to believe this. Thus, when the light dimmed, a bewildered grenade-throwing senior immortal noticed the true immortal mark on the back of his hands, and he looked around at the bewildered guests with a bewildered expression on his face. It's a true venerated mark on the back of senior immortal's hands and forehead. Both. Someone then cried out in alarm. It wasn't until that moment that grenade-throwing senior immortal cried out in his heart. He had actually broken through. For a moment, grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart was filled with emotion, and there were even tears in the corners of his eyes. Sure enough, old senior Wang didn't deceive him. He was just a small soul formation cultivator, but he could actually leap through the red gate like a carp, surpassing true immortal and reaching the true venerated realm in an instant. Come to think of it, in recent history, it seemed that no one had ever reached the true venerated realm. right? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal wiped his tears. He was touched from the bottom of his soul. Ever since he started cultivating, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had in fact come to realize that his talent wasn't as good as the rumors said. It had taken him almost 2,000 years to reach the soul formation stage. It might seem very fast, but only Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal himself knew how much effort he had put into it. There had even been a time when Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal thought that it would be hopeless for him to break through from the soul formation stage, until he met his most beloved brotherling, and that bunch of old seniors of the Wong family. From a moment he had visited the Wong family's small villa, when Grandfather Wong had scooped him a bowl of tomato egg soup and picked up a broccoli with his chopsticks, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's mood had already changed. He felt that he should be more magnanimous. He should have the courage to face life. What did tomato egg soup mean? Old Senior Wong was telling him that an ordinary egg light, was the real deal. And what did broccoli mean? Old Senior Wong was telling him that he needed to have the same spirit of overcoming difficulties as when he went on a pilgrimage to the Western Paradise to pluck beautiful flowers. At that moment, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal finally understood the meaning behind these two dishes. Heavenly Tao broccoli was really too magical. Senior Immortal, a lot of people were startled when they saw Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal wipe his tears. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal restrained his emotions a little, picked up another piece of broccoli with his chopsticks, and put it in his mouth. I never thought that after eating this Heavenly Tao broccoli every day, I would finally break through today. Everyone, don't make a fuss, eat quickly. The guests who hadn't had much of an appetite at first started to gorge themselves on their plates. There were even a few sect leaders who didn't even need their chopsticks. They directly started to eat with their hands. After this day, Chapter 830. It was August 9th on Wednesday, in the 15th week of the semester. It was the day after the Office of Strategic Deception announced its founding and smoothly held its sect celebration ceremony. News of Ultimate King of Killers' immediate execution had shaken the whole of Huaxiao Nation. Not long after the Ultimate Killer King was brought back, the Killer King's memories were completely analyzed. Given the Killer King's personality, if it was just an interrogation, the Killer King wouldn't say anything even if he died. Forcibly analyzing a memory was something that could only be done on the most vicious criminals on death row. As long as they hadn't been sentenced to death, forcibly analyzing a memory was a violation of personal rights. In the end, the analysis of Ultimate King of Killers' memories had gone so smoothly because Wang Ling had sealed off this King of Killers' power at the very end, leaving him powerless to struggle. As an old rival, General E knew this Ultimate King of Killers too well. This was Wolf Fire. If his strength hadn't been sealed off, he might have destroyed his own brain without hesitation. Huaxiao Alliance Building, the 10 Generals Conference Room. In any case, it's all thanks to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's help this time. General E sighed. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's combat strength had already been fully demonstrated in front of Marshal Jiang and General E this time. As for why it was only a preliminary demonstration, that was because the gap in their battle strength was so obvious that it didn't feel like Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had used his full strength at all. The most important thing was Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's control of his strength. It was terrifyingly precise, and he could control and release it freely. This wasn't something an ordinary person could do. I never thought that our deduction this time would be completely correct. This Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal is the strongest. We actually set our sights on that Ling Jinren and Crispy Noodles down Monarch before. It looks like this was just a smokescreen Senior Immortal left behind for the world. Marshal Jiang also sighed. This time, Senior Immortal chose to directly advance to true venerated in front of everyone during the founding ceremony, which is already a clear indication of his attitude to the world. He's a man who wants to do great things and will definitely bring the Office of Strategic Deception to greater heights. So, In the end, it's still the chief who has a unique vision. President Xi nodded. If it wasn't for the head of state's order to give Huaxiao Alliance half of the shares in the Office of Strategic Deception's investment plan this time, when the Office of Strategic Deception developed in the future, it would be hard to imagine the outcome. Saying this, President Xi was silent and didn't go on in detail. In reality, the 10 generals' hearts were as clear as a mirror. It could only be said that grenade-throwing senior immortal wasn't just an expert. He was also a meticulous person. If he wanted to develop the Office of Strategic Deception into the #1 sky-level sect, it was impossible for him to break away from Huaxiao Alliance's shackles. Thus, by accepting Huaxiao Alliance's investment, he was in fact taking the initiative to cooperate with them. Huaxiao Alliance now played an important role in the Office of Strategic Deception's future development plans. This also put an end to the rumors that the Office of Strategic Deception would become China. Moreover, if it wasn't for grenade-throwing senior immortals' great help in stopping Ultimate King of Killers, the 10 generals' reputation might have suffered setback. Since we're all family now, we have to first think of a way to explain senior immortals' promotion to true venerated internationally, President Xi said. This was the main purpose of the gathering of the 10 generals. Because of grenade-throwing senior immortals' advancement to true venerated level, there were already a lot of people in the outside world who denounced him, especially abroad. But the fact was that grenade-throwing senior immortals' advancement didn't violate the true immortal convention at all. Then what's senior immortal's stance on this? Asked Explosion Saint, who ranked first among the 10 saints in terms of combat strength. Senior immortal hasn't given an answer yet. President Xi shook his head. Perhaps this is a test? Explosion Saint raised an eyebrow. Given senior immortal's forbearing personality, he was so low-key before that even we almost misjudged him, but he chose to advance on the day of the sect's founding ceremony. I personally think that a large part of the reason is because of us. If Senior Immortal hadn't stepped in to protect Blade Master and Battle Saint, I think he would have continued to hide. Explosion Saint sighed deeply. I still feel that we owe Senior Immortal a big favor. So, while Senior Immortal hasn't made his stance clear on this matter, we still have to handle it carefully. President Xi said, in the future, we may need Senior Immortal's help, so this matter has to be handled properly. Of course, there's another possibility that Senior Immortal isn't replying, and that is because we escorted too many people away yesterday, which made Senior Immortal feel that we didn't give him face. So he's angry. Angry? No way. I'll ask him. General E sent grenade-throwing Senior Immortal a text message. Senior Immortal, are you angry? After the dinner party last night, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had added General E and Marshal Jiang, the 2 representatives of the 10 generals, on WeChat. Everyone, when he received the text message, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was vexed over what the international news was saying about him. He had been eating broccoli for so long, but in the end, who knew that he would advance so fiercely yesterday, angry? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at General Yi's text message and was a little flattered as he replied. Angry? I'm not. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal respected the 10 generals very much. After all, he was just a baby with a cultivation base of over 2,000 years, but the 10 generals had cultivated for thousands of years and far surpassed him. They were seniors who had gone through great storms. While the 10 generals were thinking of ways to deal with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, the latter was also vexed over the sect and the international news. On the other side, there was another person who was vexed, and that was Wang Zhen, because Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch was about to face an important final exam. The matter of asking Wang Zhen had been put on hold. Wang Zhen's strength had been completely sealed, and he was living at Wei Ji's house, helping him raise the animals and living a life of repeatedly kissing and stroking cats. But this wasn't enough to calm Wang Zhen down just like that. Wang Zhen thought that he had probably made a mistake regarding the matter of the thieves. And the most important thing was that Miss Liu still hadn't woken up. Thinking up to this point, Wang Zhen felt a little conflicted. In fact, he hoped that Miss Lu would wake up, because if the Lu family knew that their precious daughter had secretly followed him into a Cohen's belly in order to look for him in the world below, and had even put him into a deep coma, they would definitely skin him alive. But Wang Zhen also hoped that this Miss Lu would calm down a little after waking up. It was impossible for there to be love between the two of them. But why was this Miss Lu relentlessly chasing after him? In the world above, Wang Zhen had heard that Miss Lu had a good impression of him, but he hadn't expected her to be this crazy. Wasn't he just handsome, strong, and rich? Chapter 831. Wang Zhen had always been an extremely conceited person since he was a child. The Wang family had a prominent position on Ninefold Star and was always in the top 3 on the ranking of aristocratic families, and basically stayed in second place. Even if they sometimes fell to third place, they would quickly return to second place. The number 1 aristocratic family on Ninefold Star was the Gu family, and eldest young Master Gu had always been Wang Zhen's sworn enemy. Wang Zhen had challenged eldest young Master Gu countless times, but had always ended in defeat. The Lu family was a little weaker than the Wang family, but was still 7th on the ranking. This time, the Wang family had chosen to join forces with the Lu family through marriage in order to counter the Gu family's continuous expansion as the number 1 hegemon on Ninefold Star. It wasn't that Wang Zhen didn't understand the elders' actions. After all, the Wang family had been a number 1 hegemon on Ninefold Star for a long time. It was just that in the past, the Wang family had fallen into a slump, and it was during that slump that the Gu family had risen to prominence. The Wang family's elders were dissatisfied with the long-term instability of the Wang family's position and the criticism of the outside world, so they naturally had to think of ways to reconsolidate their position. As the eldest son of the Wang family's younger generation, Wang Zhen naturally had to shoulder heavy responsibilities. And this way of entrusting him with heavy responsibilities was through marriage. This was currently the fastest way the Wang family elders could think of to increase their strength. Moreover, that Miss Lu of the Lu family, Lu Qingyi, was very beautiful, dignified, and graceful. According to the Wang family elders' initial introduction to Wang Zhen, Miss Lu Qingyi's most outstanding feature was her legs, which were as white as ice cream, and which made people want to lick them. Still thinking about that Miss Lu? In the living room, Wei Ji saw Wang Zhen's listless and distressed expression. Wang Zhen stared emotionlessly at the LCD TV, which was playing a live broadcast of this year's S888 season and the League of Legends finals. Wang Zhen was bored. This year's Huan Nation IG team was too strong. They were thrashed in every way. Wang Zhen was still watching the first match, but he didn't need to pinch his fingers to know that it was definitely going to be 3 o'clock. Sigh, boring. It was the same as a marriage alliance. Boring. After living together for the past 2 days, Wei Ji probably knew more about Wang Zhen than anyone else in the know. When Wang Zhen had been sent here, Immortal Toya had already shared all the information he knew with Wei Ji. Wei Ji was now one of them, and Wang Zhen was left in the world below without a fixed place to stay. He needed Wei Ji's help, so he naturally had to let Wei Ji know who he was helping and why he was helping. Wei Ji was a good person, but not a goody two-shoes. In fact, Wei Ji sympathized with Wang Zhen's predicament. It was already the year 8102 to think that marriage alliances and forced partnerships still existed. He had to marry a girl he didn't like, and after that, he had to give birth to a child according to the rules of the marriage. Wang Zhen had described it to Wei Ji before. This was simply a disaster. Get over it. Wei Ji patted Wang Zhen on the shoulder. Isn't it possible for you and Miss Lu to give it a try? Impossible, impossible. Wang Zhen shook his head. Do you know how happy the elders of the Lu family were when our Wang family and the Wang family joined forces by marriage? All of them curled up on the ground like mantis shrimps, laughing hysterically. Wei Ji, Wang Zhen sighed. What I can't accept the most is that they actually knocked Miss Lu out and moved her into my bedroom. Wei Ji was startled. You didn't do anything? Wang Zhen looked at Wei Ji and shook his head. Wang Zhen, Might be a little cheap sometimes, but I wouldn't go so far as to do that to a girl. I'm a gentleman. You're lying. Wei Ji stared at Wang Zhen. Wang Zhen, it was the pushing large butterfly that told me. Wei Ji said, the pushing large butterfly's wings can sense subtle vibrations in the air. When a person lies, their breathing rhythm is different. So, towards that Miss Lu, I swear, I really didn't do anything. Wang Zhen surrendered and raised his hands. I just didn't have any feelings for her. Wei Ji understood. That is to say, if it was another girl you had feelings for, you would have done it, right? Wang Zhen felt like he had fallen into a trap. Furthermore, he actually couldn't refute it. But at that time, it was an indisputable fact that he didn't have any feelings for Lu Qingyi. Logically speaking, Wang Zhen felt that if he saw a girl he particularly liked, even if he wouldn't do anything particularly wretched or despicable, he would at the very least have some reaction. As a hot-blooded man, he actually didn't have any reaction when he saw a pretty girl who looked pretty good. Didn't that mean he didn't have feelings for her? But then again, Wang Zhen had in fact never been in a serious relationship. In his limited childhood memories, he only had memories of his body being stimulated by his real father and mother. It was better now that he was older. Wang Zhen remembered that his real parents had been extremely controlling of him when he was young. He didn't know what puppy love was before, and his real parents would get nervous just by looking at a pretty girl at school. To prevent him from puppy love, they had sent him to a puppy love rehabilitation center. Wang Zhen could still vividly remember what happened in treatment room 13 back then. Unfortunately, that puppy love rehabilitation center had been shut down after Wang Zhen had gone in. That was because the sweaty men inside couldn't hold him down at all when they used electric shock therapy on him. As for that puppy love therapist surnamed Yang, Wang Zhen had even directly smashed his dog head in by an enraged Wang Zhen. So from that day on, his real parents made a great decision. They decided that from now on, they would do everything themselves. They wouldn't entrust it to anyone else. While Wang Zhen was complaining to Wei Ji, there was a new development on Chrysanthemum Island. Jin Shi and Yin Shi had been staying by Miss Lu Qingyi's side to take care of her. In the last 2 days, Lu Qingyi had been making more and more small movements, from moving her fingers at the beginning to her eyelids, trembling from time to time. It looks like she'll wake up soon. Immortal Toya opened Miss Lu's eyelids and checked the condition of her pupils. Shifu, what's the situation like now? Jin Shi asked in a childish voice. Miss Lu is pretty much better now, and has completely woken up from her severe coma. Maybe in 2 or 3 days. Maybe she'll wake up in the next second. As soon as Immortal Toya said this. Chapter 832. The girl who had just woken up was astonishingly calm, as if she already knew what had happened. She even knew her surroundings like the back of her hand. How long have I been unconscious? Miss Lu turned to ask Immortal Toya next to her. She touched her legs. Because she had been lying in bed for a long time, her legs were slightly numb. Although Jin Shi and Yin Shi had been massaging her muscles every year, there was still a kind of numbness. This was because Miss Lu's previous coma was more serious. It was a super coma that was close to a vegetative state, and it usually only happened to cultivators. In the process of unconsciousness, all the meridians in his body were blocked, and the spiritual power in his body could not circulate. His golden core could not rotate on its own, and even his nascent soul began to enter a dormant state. More importantly, this Miss Lu was originally from the divine realm, so her demand for spiritual power was relatively large. However, she fell into a coma after coming to the lower realm, and the spiritual power on Earth was relatively thin. This worsened the symptoms of the coma. So during the treatment, in addition to Jin Shi and Yin Shi's combined massage, Immortal Toya also used golden needles to unblock Miss Lu's meridians and circulate spirit energy manually. The fact that Miss Lu could directly sit up like this now was the result of their efforts. If no one paid any attention to her after lying down for so long, Miss Lu would probably have to use her mind to move every muscle in her body, just like the female lead in the movie Kill Bill. From the time we rescued Lady Lu until now, It's been more than a month. Immortal Toya did his best to keep a gentle smile on his face. He didn't want to startle Miss Lu, but it seemed that this Miss Lu was a little thick-skinned and seemed a little too familiar with him. At this moment, she was massaging her slender legs with her arms, and the light coming from her hands was intermittent. Because she hadn't used spirit force for a long time, some of her meridians weren't completely connected. This was actually a normal phenomenon. It's pretty much what I expected. Thank you so much. Immortal Toya, Miss Lu said. What does Miss Lu know me? Actually, I regained consciousness a few hours ago, but I can't open my eyes at all. Just by listening to your two disciples chatter, I know where I am and what happened, Lady Lu said. Immortal Toya was blank. He woke up a few hours ago. He sweated a little. Thank goodness it wasn't a few days ago. Otherwise, if Wang Zhen had been here at that time, wouldn't he have been pounced on by Miss Lu? I know. Miss Lu borrowed the Kuan to come down to the world below for the sake of your relationship, right? Immortal Toya said. You even know about this? Miss Lu was shocked. Immortal Toya had never liked to poke his nose into other people's business. But after the last time Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had come to Chrysanthemum Island, because of the soul suppression ring, Immortal Toya had mistakenly thought that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had a partner, and a series of awkward incidents had occurred. Immortal Toya was surprised to realize that he seemed to have the potential to be a matchmaker. Feelings were something that had to be nurtured. Who would be born with feelings? Even for Senior Ling Zhenren, it was only after eating crispy noodle snacks several times that he had developed such an obsession with them. In Immortal Toya's opinion, Wang Zhen and this Miss Lu were a perfect match for each other. We actually pretty much understand Miss Lu's situation. In our world below, we also need an almighty called Senior Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch. He can understand a lot of things. Immortal Toya waved his hand and had Jin Shi and Inshi leave first. He then pulled out a chair, sat down, and started to talk with Miss Lu. Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch? Miss Lu carefully recalled this Taoist name. She wasn't a narrow-minded person, but she really didn't have much of an impression of this Taoist name. But this Dao Monarch actually knew about her feelings. It seemed that he was indeed a big shot through and through. Then what do you think about this relationship? Miss Lu didn't avoid the topic and asked directly. A lot of times, feelings are mutual, and it's definitely not good to force it. Given Taoist Wang Zhen's looks, there should be a lot of people chasing after him. So I think he probably has seen countless women, so it might be very difficult to move him with ordinary methods. Miss Lu thought for a moment, then nodded. That's true. Go on. She had fought Wang Zhen before, and he was indeed coarse and thick-skinned. She couldn't move him at all. Furthermore, he was very good at dealing with her cultivation techniques and martial arts, and could easily break all kinds of her moves, making her feel very embarrassed every time. Presumably, this had a lot to do with the fact that he had seen countless women. However, Wang Zhen herself didn't know about her fight with Wang Zhen. She had disguised her identity once and deliberately challenged Wang Zhen to a fight. Until now, Wang Zhen still didn't know why a lunatic would suddenly lock him in from behind as he was leaving the house. So, when it comes to Taoist Wang Zhen, I think Miss Lu should act according to his preferences. Some people are amenable to coercion but not coaxing, while others are amenable to coaxing but not coercion. You mean you want me to give him a present? But why should I give him a present? Miss Lu was a little dazed. Immortal Toya smiled. Love is mutual. Miss Lu, you have to understand an unchanging truth. It's easy for a woman to pursue a man. Even if Taoist Wang Zhen doesn't feel anything for you now, as long as you put in a little more effort, you'll be able to move him sooner or later. When Immortal Toya said this, Miss Lu's eyes suddenly widened, and she looked at Immortal Toya with an incredulous expression on her face. Immortal Toya broke out in a sweat. Did I say something wrong? No. There's nothing wrong with what you said. Miss Lu was blank. But Immortal Toya, why do I feel that what you're saying and what I understand aren't the same thing? Immortal Toya, didn't you come to pursue Taoist Wang Zhen? Miss Lu, that's right. I did want to pursue him. That's why I snuck into the belly of the koan he was raising. Immortal Toya, then, Miss Lu. But I never said that I was pursuing him because I liked him. When did I say I wanted to marry him? Immortal Toya, Miss Lu. I was forced to marry him because the elders wanted me to marry him. I don't like him at all. He's not bad looking, but he's not a noob at all. I don't have any feelings for him at all. But our elders have already decided on the wedding date. So I'm very annoyed. Thus, I thought of a brilliant plan. I decided to sneak into the belly of the koan he was raising, chase him down to the world below, and then look for an opportunity to kill him. It's easy for a woman to pursue a man. It's easy for a woman to pursue a man. Chapter 833. Immortal Toya never expected the truth to turn out like this. Immortal Toya. So, the real reason Miss Lu chased after Daoist Wangjun back then was just to beat him up? As Miss Lu massaged her thigh, she revealed a matter-of-fact expression. Of course. What else can I do? Immortal Toya, Miss Lu, does that guy Wangjun think I'm chasing him? He was too narcissistic. It's true that my Lu Qingyi family's ranking isn't as high as his Wang family's. But he should know that when my Lu family was at its peak, we could chase up to the top 3 on the list and almost overturn the Wang family, causing them to fall from their hegemonic position. His Wang family was indeed very amazing, and it was said that the first patriarch of the Wang family was the founder of Ninefold Star. Why couldn't the Wang family rule the hegemony now? And there was a big gap between them and the number 1 Gu family. The Wang family should know the reason best. It was all because the descendants of the Wang clan did not want to improve, relying on their hegemonic position to eat and wait for death, thinking that they could rule for a long time. In the end, after a certain period of time, when the Wang family's strength in all aspects plummeted and they fell into a slump, the Wang family began to pay attention to them. Immortal Toya, Immortal Toya didn't know much about the disputes between the aristocratic clans on Ninefold Star, but he was actually quite interested in what Miss Lu had to say. The most important thing was that Immortal Toya realized that he didn't have a chance to interrupt her at all. Miss Lu had been in a coma for too long, and it had been a long time since she had been able to release the gloominess in her heart. However, by the time the Wang family started to pay attention, it was already too late. The gap between the Gu clan and the Wang clan wasn't that big to begin with. During the period when the Wang clan was in a slump, the Gu clan overtook the Wang clan several times and finally became the hegemon, pulling the Wang clan down from their pedestal. Lu Qingyi chuckled, and there was an unruly look in her eyes. So, now that the Wang family and our Lu family are connected by marriage, the outside world is saying that when the Lu family found out about the marriage, we were as happy as a grandson seeing his grandfather and wanted to suck up to the Wang family. But in this lady's eyes, we are the grandfathers, and the Wang family is the grandson, and this Wang Zhen is just a little brother. Immortal Toya, Lu Qingyi. So, my first goal in descending this time is to kill that traitor Chao. No, kill that traitor Wang. When Miss Lu said this, Immortal Toya noticed that her legs seemed to have almost recovered. She was now bending forward on the bed. Her legs were exceptionally flexible, and she could pull her elbows up to her toes. Immortal Toya sighed and felt deeply sorry for Wang Zhen. What a good girl. And it wasn't a pair of A's either. Looks like it's something. Her skin was fair and clear, curvaceous. Furthermore, even her flexibility was so outstanding. If they were together, they would definitely unlock many new positions. Miss Lu has just woken up, and it may take some time for her lower body to recover. I'll go get her a cup of invigorating blood tea, which will speed up her recovery, said Immortal Toya. Lu Qingyi didn't stand on ceremony. Thank you for taking care of me all these days. I will repay you well in the future. Immortal Toya laughed. Well said. Well said. Actually, pouring tea was only secondary. It was just that Immortal Toya needed to inform the other side about Miss Lu's awakening in advance. In exchange for information on the domain of the gods, He had promised Wang Zhen that he would let him know if Lu Qingyi had any clues or news. And then there was one more thing. As the saying went, it was better to tear down 10 temples than to break up a marriage. Although the two of them didn't have any feelings for each other now, they were really a good match. Immortal Toya wanted to play matchmaker. Now that the two of them had come this far, they couldn't be roped in through normal means. Furthermore, Immortal Toya could tell that both of them were a little tsundere. What was the best way to deal with its tsundere? That was to play hard to get. However, whether this matter could succeed or not would ultimately depend on the two people's luck. When he left the treatment room, Immortal Toya looked up at the sky and sighed. He suddenly remembered that his job wasn't to be a matchmaker, but to be an alchemist. Him. Who cares in this world? There were plenty of people who didn't do proper work. Roughly 10 minutes later, Wang Zhen learned that Lu Qingyi had woken up, and Immortal Toya told him what Lu Qingyi had said after she had woken up, word for word. On the other end of the line, Wang Zhen's hands trembled as he gripped Wei Ji's homeland line. She really said that? Wei Ji's forehead was covered in sweat at this scene. Fortunately, Wang Zhen's strength had already been sealed, otherwise his landline would have been directly scrapped. Immortal Toya, yes, what Miss Lu said to me just now was exactly what she said, word for word. Mr. Wang Zhen can rest assured now. Miss Lu doesn't have any feelings for you, and even wants to kill you. To Immortal Toya's surprise, Wang Zhen flew into a rage. K. How can this woman talk nonsense like this? How did my Wang family become a grandson? How did his Lu family become a grandfather? If it wasn't for my Wang family's financial support back then, the Lu family wouldn't even have been able to stand in the top 10. Immortal Toya, Mr. Wang Zhen, calm down first. It's possible that Miss Lu was careless after waking up. The way I see it, this woman is simply playing with fire. Wang Zhen punched Wei Ji's sofa. You, give her the phone. I want to argue with her face to face. Immortal Toya, but didn't Mr. Wang Zhen say that you didn't want her to know about what happened in the world below? Wang Zhen, I thought she was going to chase me before, but I didn't expect her to want to kill me. I don't know who gave her the guts to do that. So it seems that she's the only one who could have done all those sneak attacks on me in the world above. I'm going to get even with her. If I don't teach her a lesson, she'll really think I'm easy to bully. Or you don't have to give her the phone. Just tell her that if she has the guts, let's have a fight. Since she's a woman, I'll let her beat her with one hand and one leg. If we want to have a fight, Crispy Noodles Down Monarch will be our witness. Immortal Toya, Wang Zhen, don't just stand there. Go tell her now. Immortal Toya, or about a few minutes later, in the treatment room, Miss Lu was so angry that she straightaway got out of bed, her chest shaking wildly. Did he really say that? Immortal Toya, that's right. What Taoist Wang Zhen said to me just now was exactly what he said, word for word. Miss Lu can rest assured now. Taoist Wang Zhen doesn't have any feelings for you, and even wants to have a fight with you. As everyone knew, humans were essentially repeaters. Everything was going according to Immortal Toya's plan. Miss Lu was furious. Damn, how can this man talk nonsense like this? When did my Lu family ever accept the Wang family's help? That's a loan. Do you understand how to turn a loan around? Our Lu family has to pay back the money with interest later on, and we've already paid it back. Isn't it just a fight? Come on, let's see who kills who. Does Immortal Toya have a recommended location? It's best if it's next to that Crispy Noodles Down Monarch. Otherwise, this pig trotter won't go back on his word. Chapter 834. Whether it was Wang Zhen or Lu Qingyi, from Immortal Toya's initial impression of the two of them, he realized that the thinking of the people in the domain of the gods in the upper world wasn't very different from that of the people in the lower world. This was mainly reflected in the fact that they were flirtatious when they should be flirtatious, and tsundere when they should be. After all, humans were essentially the same. The reason why people yearned to go to the upper world of the domain of the gods was that for most cultivators, it was a higher world. Since ancient times, whether it was ordinary people or cultivators, The constant pursuit of better things had always been one of the main reasons why humans had evolved and adapted to the present. After hearing Wang Zhen's declaration of war, Lu Qingyi was furious. Set up a time with Wang Zhen. I can already feel my blood surging in my body, and it's on the verge of bursting out. This Wang Zhen is really a narcissistic and arrogant guy. He actually boasted that he would let me use one of his arms and legs. Do I need him to let me? Miss Liu, don't be impatient. Immortal Toya laughed. Calm down first. Don't be impatient. Crispy Noodles Down Monarch went to the Foundation Establishment High School to experience life. If the two of you want to fight there, I'm afraid your realms will have to be suppressed. Otherwise, it'll be dangerous for other people. If two almighties whose realms surpassed venerated immortals fought at the Foundation Establishment High School, even if they just released their auras, the students in number 60 high might not be able to withstand it. At that time, number 60 high would really become a graveyard. The main thing was that Immortal Toya had to find another opportunity to talk to Wang Ling about this matter. Number 60 high's first semester final exams were approaching, and Immortal Toya guessed that Wang Ling wouldn't be in the mood to deal with this matter. Wang Ling had said before that he would ask Wang Zhen about the domain of the gods, but in the end, because of the exams, he didn't have the time, so he had left Wang Zhen at Wei Ji's place and stood him up until now. So in the end, Wang Ling had to make the arrangements. Immortal Toya had also thought it through before choosing to arrange for the two of them to stay at number 60 high. The reason was very simple, because there was no one in the lower world who could suppress these two great gods. It was August 10th on Thursday, in the 15th week of the semester. The final exams would be held tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This time, the final exams would be conducted without classes, which meant that there would be no classes after the exams, and students could go home to revise. But for the vast majority of students, revision was impossible. Number 60 high's curriculum and activity schedule this semester was really too tight. Most students' attitude toward the suspended classes and exams was to go back and relax after the exams. After school, Wang Ling was wondering how on earth he could keep his marks down for tomorrow's exam, while Dopigua and the others were already making plans for tomorrow's stress reduction. Just as Wang Ling was about to break into a run and leave the classroom, Dopigua's hand was already on his shoulder. Wang Ling, Dopigua, my token. How about we go to karaoke tomorrow? There was a KTV next to number 60 high school, and Wang Ling heard that the original owner was a student from number 60 high school, so there was a special discount for students. The prices were so high that students could even afford to use their pocket money. Most KTVs nowadays had built-in space expansion technology, and there were both small and large private rooms. Furthermore, the prices weren't too different and weren't as exaggerated as in old-school KTVs. Nowadays, almost all the expensive KTV services were available, but for students, it was just singing to relieve stress, and it didn't cost much at all. Of course, it wasn't that Wang Ling was worried about money. Was he that kind of person? But how many crispy noodle snack packets could he buy at a KTV? As Wang Ling's deskmate, Dopiguan knew very well that Wang Ling had a rather boring personality after interacting with him this semester, and was probably the type who didn't want to go out. But there weren't many boys in grade 1, class 3 to begin with. Dopigua had asked several before, but had been rejected. When it came to karaoke, it was more fun with more people. Little Peanut suggested. I asked Lotus Sun and Little You, and they said they wanted to go shopping. How about we invite Fong Xing and Jiang Bai from class 2? Hearing this name, Wang Ling was suddenly dazed, and then remembered that there was a girl called Lotus Sun in their class. She was the eldest daughter of Huagua Water Curtain Group. Official mockery here. I think that's fine. Super Chin nodded, then stretched out his other hand and put it on Wang Ling's other shoulder. Wang Ling, I know you won't refuse us, right? Wang Ling, this was a classic case of forcing a duck onto a perch, but Wang Ling knew most of the people going to the KTV this time, so he could only agree, and so the matter of going to the KTV was happily settled. In the evening, Dopigua created an independent group chat for KTV. It was filled with people who were going to the KTV tomorrow. The fee was 48 yuan per person, including lunch and a fruit platter. It really wasn't expensive at all, but when Wang Ling calculated it, he realized that 48 yuan could pretty much buy a dozen or so ordinary crispy noodle snack packets, which was still a little painful. A few minutes later, Super Chan forwarded a piece of news to the group chat. Damn, Wu Xinjuan's album? Little Peanut was blank. Isn't Wu Xinjuan a teacher? How come he also released an album? Dopeywood chuckled. After all, Wu Xinjuan is irascible Dharmaraja, Wu Yifun's disciple. Isn't it normal for him to inherit his Shifu's legacy? At the summer camp in Beast Kings remains not long ago, Wu Xinjuan had demonstrated the high ultrasound technique, which he had inherited from irascible Dharmaraja Wu Yifun, which had left a deep impression on all the students. Wu Xinjuan was indeed an extraordinary man. Dopey Gua. Before Wu Xinjuan became a teacher, he started out as an idol singer. Furthermore, his singing style is exactly the same as that of his teacher, irascible Dharmaraja Wu Yifun. Wu Xinjuan's greatest characteristic is his brisk rhythm and electric music that makes people's scalps numb. Note: the above content has been copied and pasted from Chindu Chinka. Wang Ling clicked on Super Chin's forward share to take a look. He realized that Wu Xinjuan's songs were actually ranked very high, but there were a lot of skepticism in the comments. Who is Wu Xinjuan? Why have I never heard of this singer? Also, is it appropriate for an entire album to be made up of electric music? Don't tell me this chart is fake. I beg this Wu Xinjuan's fans to stop faking it, otherwise he'll never know how to improve. Some people were skeptical, and naturally, there were fans who defended him. How can you say that about Wu Wu? Do you know how hard Wu Wu works? Wu Wu has a fever of 60 degrees, but he still perseveres in his ideals and works hard to sing. Wu Wu has been preparing this album for 3 years to give his fans a surprise. So what? Wu Wu is thinking about us. He sings electric music so that we don't have to bring power banks with us when we go out, so that the whole nation can charge up by listening to music. Wang Ling, seeing this, Wang Ling casually clicked on a demo song. The most amazing thing happened. Chapter 835. August 11th, the 15th Friday of the semester. It was the first day of number 60 High's first semester's final exams. The first day was a language exam, a Tao Talisman exam, and a Spirit Sword Operation exam. The Tao Talisman exam wasn't anything fancy and mainly involved writing down the talisman application formulas and combining reactions. As for the Spirit Sword Operation exam, it tested each student's ability to control a spirit sword. The requirement for Foundation Establishment Senior High School was that everyone had to be proficient in controlling spirit swords. Whether or not they could nurture their own sword spirit while in school didn't matter, but by the time they graduated, all students had to learn how to fly on a sword. Currently, the requirements for the first year of high school were relatively relaxed. As long as the students could control their spirit swords, they would be able to do so within a range of 100 meters. Of course, this range was also related to one's realm. When controlling a spirit sword, the further the distance, the greater the consumption of spiritual energy and physical strength. Generally speaking, a distance of 150 meters to 200 meters in the Foundation Establishment stage was already the limit of the limit, and this also required special training. In the first year of high school, the highest standard to achieve excellence was the 100-meter sprint. The range of the Golden Core stage was even larger, 1,000 meters to 3,000 meters. Nascent Soul, 5,000 m, 10,000 m. Huashan stage, 20,000 meters, 100,000 meters. According to the different cultivation progress, everyone's range of control over the spirit sword was different. If one specialized in the spirit sword department after entering university, the range of control over the spirit sword would be larger after graduation. Currently, Blade Master General E was ranked first in the operating range of a spirit sword, and the only person on the list who could reach over 1 million meters. Of course, this didn't exclude the fact that some folk experts didn't want to participate in the rankings. For example, Wang Ling, suppressed by the Tao Talisman, The range of his spirit swords could cross from one planet to another. If Wang Ling wanted to, he could even send Jinka to the moon. But he had already made thorough preparations for these 3 exams and could be said to be extremely confident. Taking into account the current academic situation in Grade 1, Class 3, Wang Ling estimated everyone's scores and finally set an average of 125 marks for the final exam. For the final exam, all subjects were scored on a 150-point scale. 125 points. This result was perfect. Generally speaking, this score was the kind that parents would frown when they saw it, but could only tell them to continue to work hard to get above 130 next time. The teachers would also be speechless when they saw this score. It didn't seem to be particularly bad, but this score wasn't worthy of praise. So in the end, most students with this score would be left hanging when the teachers announced it. For Wang Ling, the most difficult thing wasn't the final exam, but the karaoke KTV. He had already prepared all kinds of game consoles, which Wang Ming had made for him, and they were better than those available on the market. It wasn't that he wanted to play games, but he really didn't want to sing KTV. So Wang Ling chose to play the game with his head down and gloriously play dead. While Wang Ling had his own troubles, Dharmaraja on the other side also had a new one. Ever since the Office of Strategic Deception was established, Dharmaraja had quit his job at the Xiao family big yard and devoted himself wholeheartedly to being the head of the Office of Strategic Deception's logistics team. When he quit, the person in charge of the Xiao family big yard even gave Dharmaraja his bonus. Of course, this bonus wasn't for Dharmaraja's sake, but for the Office of Strategic Deception's sake. Everyone knew that, as the chief of the Office of Strategic Deception, grenade-throwing senior immortal had just advanced to true venerated a while ago, and the whole nation and foreign people had seen the Office of Strategic Deception's momentum on the day of its founding ceremony. No one dared offend such a flourishing sect. Dharmaraja had resigned from his job at the Xiao family compound to go to the Office of Strategic Deception, but the Xiao family compound had actually been very happy. When the HR department recruited people later, they could use Dharmaraja as a gimmick to further expand the reputation of their Xiao family compound park. The current logistics team leader of the Office of Strategic Deception, Lightning Dharmaraja, was in charge of the park's infrastructure and logistical maintenance. Although he had already left, he was still a former employee of the Xiao family compound. Of course, apart from freeloading on Dharmaraja's reputation, if the Xiao family compound and the Office of Strategic Deception cooperated in the future, Dharmaraja would definitely be the middleman. This was society. After you quit a job, if your original employer treated you well, you would still have feelings for it. And so, Dharmaraja left just like that. Furthermore, he left with a bountiful pot of money. But Dharmaraja didn't expect a big problem to arise after he left. There were always some colleagues who inexplicably disliked you at work. Dharmaraja had been the logistics director when he was still here, but now that he was gone, there were all sorts of things to say. The Xiao family compound's management was very clear about Dharmaraja's departure. They encouraged and supported him, and even gave him an extra bonus. But it was hard for Dharmaraja to stop these people's mouths. Dharmaraja didn't even know which brother he had offended at work. In the last 2 days, Weibo and the Cultivation Forum had been full of posts defaming him. At that moment, Dharmaraja was complaining to Immortal Toya, "I just quit my job, and now the whole internet is defaming me. Little brother, what's the matter with you?" Immortal Toya smiled. "You probably offended someone at your previous workplace, right? I've always felt that I'm pretty popular." Dharmaraja sighed. "You may know a person's face, but you can't judge his heart. You just left, and someone is already defaming you. It looks like it's been simmering for a long time, and it just exploded all at once." Immortal Toya, what are they defaming you about? Brother, too. Do you know that there's another Dharmaraja circulating on the internet? Yes, I remember that. Although I've always joked about that Dharmaraja before, saying that electric shocks can cure internet addiction and so on, I really am not that lightning Dharmaraja. I'm the heir to the Thunder Clan's godly thunder inheritance, and a genuine 8-star electrician. Licensed. Immortal Toya, Lightning Dharmaraja. Brother 2, there's something you don't know, but there was a rumor on the internet about treatment room number 13. There's a psychiatrist there who lied about using a treatment device he developed to treat internet addiction in children, but in fact, he tricked them into locking them up in the isolation room and subjecting them to electric shocks. If they don't admit their mistakes, the electric shocks will continue. I know about this. Immortal Toya frowned. As far as I know, treatment room number 13 doesn't just treat children, it also treats a lot of adults. But didn't the treatment room close down after it was exposed? Even that Doctor's Weibo account was deleted. Dharmaraj sighed. It's because it was deleted that it's a pain in the ass. Also, I'm guessing that the treatment room is probably still open. Now, that group of people online keeps saying that I'm that electrotherapist smuff account. Chapter 836. Treatment Room 13 was rumored to have been shut down after it was exposed on the internet back then. But the truth was that this internet addiction treatment center hadn't been shut down. Dharmaraja was complaining to Immortal Toya, but in fact he was well aware that the sudden violence online was like eating a bitter pill in silence. It was too easy for netizens nowadays to be swayed by public opinion, and there was a lot of online resentment toward the internet addiction treatment center. Many anonymous or even public exposures had appeared one after another, posting long articles detailing their experiences in the center. The parents who sent their children there all had the same characteristics. For example, they had a low level of education. For example, they spoiled their children too much. For example, they had a strong desire to control their children. For example, they all believed that as long as their children could change, it would be fine even if they used a little violence. After the incident was exposed, Treatment Room 13 had been shut down due to public resentment a few years ago, but the truth was that this mysterious treatment room had been operating in secret all along. There were already some cracks on the gray wallpaper. A middle-aged man wearing an eye patch was sitting in his seat in a dark office. His hair was a little sparse, and he looked like a greasy middle-aged man. His head was a little sunken and his face was covered in scratches, but these wounds had been there for a long time. This was an office as well as a treatment room. The layout inside was very simple. Apart from an office desk, there was also a rectangular table. This table was made entirely of black iron and was wrapped in a thin layer of plastic film. The workmanship looked very exquisite. On the edge of the table, there were several shackles that could be used to restrain one's movements. Not long after the man waited in front of the desk, a young man slowly walked in. The young man was wearing a special Taoist robe with a rather exotic style. There were hundreds of folds on the clothes, like layers of Michelin tires wrapped around his body. On the top of the young man's head, there were two tentacle-like things stretching out. "Welcome, Mr. Long Ming." Seeing the young man approach, the middle-aged man hurriedly got up. The location Dr. Yang chose was very secretive, but it took my master quite a while to find it. Long Ming raised his eyebrows, then asked, "So, are you willing to accept my master's conditions? I've also long heard of Venerable White's great name. Each of the conditions Venerable White has proposed has poked at my sore spot. Therefore, I have no reason to refuse." A strange smile appeared on the face of the man. "However, this injury of mine was appraised a long time ago and is incurable. Even if I were to undergo plastic surgery, I would slowly revert to my current appearance. This is a congenital injury, and Venerable White actually has a way to treat it. To be honest, I'm very surprised. You don't have to worry about my master's strength." Long Ming said, "But I have some doubts about Dr. Yang's injury. Do you think he was born with it?" "Not bad." Yang Huai nodded. 42 generations of our ancestors have been running this business. But on the 36th generation, my 18th generation ancestor was severely injured. His face was scratched to a pulp, a lot of his hair was pulled out, and even one of his eyeballs was knocked out. It is said that he was even kicked in the head. Long Ming, Yang Huai. But that's the strange part. After my 36th generation ancestor, Yang Yong, was beaten to that state, the 37th generation ancestor, Yang Exine, was born with the same face as the 36th generation ancestor. Since then, this congenital disfigurement has been like a curse that has been passed on to me the 42nd generation ancestor. To this day, it has not been completely cured. Then does Dr. Yang still remember the man who kicked in the head of your 36th generation ancestor? Oh no, the head? Long Ming frowned, feeling that there was something fishy about this matter. If it was just a simple beating, it shouldn't have affected the next generation like this. It was obvious that he had been cursed during the process of being beaten. But how many people in this world could cause such a powerful curse? The information I have on my ancestors is really limited, because a few years ago, my internet rehab center was repeatedly smashed. Some little bastards even set fire to my office when they left, and almost all the information was burned. Yang Huai sighed. But when my ancestors ran the internet rehab center back then, it was at its peak. Many sect heads even relied on us to correct the improper behavior of some sect disciples. We don't just treat internet addiction. As long as there's something wrong with the body, we can cure it. Long Ming nodded and looked at an ordinary-looking healing device on the side. Is this the machine you're using? Mr. Long Ming should have already experienced it in the main treatment room, right? Yang Huai laughed wickedly. Yes. Long Ming nodded. I tried using the highest power before, but it didn't have much effect on me. Mr. Long Ming's realm is high, so of course you won't feel anything. Yang Huai smiled and waved his hand. But that's just a primary treatment machine. The ultimate treatment machine is the one in my office, which is the one Mr. Long Ming saw. Long Ming, this healing device once treated a cultivator in the divine transformation realm at most. That cultivator was electrocuted to the point where he wished he was dead. Speaking up to this point, Yang Huai's expression suddenly turned serious. Art is electrocution, Long Ming asked curiously. Then why was he sent here? People are sent here for a variety of reasons. Some are in love, some are addicted to mahjong or games, and there are even some who always come to me for electrocution to treat their impotence because their married lives aren't harmonious. Yang Huai chuckled, a rather wretched expression on his face. That soul formation cultivator who was sent here was actually a deputy sect leader. Unfortunately, this deputy sect leader didn't get along with the sect leader, and the two of them always held different views on the sect's general direction. But this deputy sect leader was extremely cautious and never let the sect leader get anything on him. But if you walk by the river often, how can your shoes not get wet? Long Ming, so why was he sent here? Yang Huai, last Mid-Autumn Festival, the sect had to send mooncakes to all their partners, and the deputy sect leader was in charge of ordering them. And this deputy sect leader actually ordered several carts of 5-kernel mooncakes. Long Ming, what about 5-kernel mooncakes? Yang Huai, doesn't Mr. Long Ming think 5-kernel filling is disgusting? For example, I like them with seaweed filling. Long Ming. Chapter 837. Yang Huai had a habit of videotaping the treatment at the same time. This wasn't to admire the patient's pained expressions, but purely for the sake of his own electrocution treatment. Every time he treated them, he would adjust the power of the treatment apparatus based on the cultivators of different realms, and he would make repeated adjustments through the video. Generally speaking, when the treatment apparatus was turned on, it would make people feel pain, but wouldn't knock them out or electrocute them to death, which was the most ideal effect. Yang Huai knew that when the treatment room had just opened, his ancestor had accidentally electrocuted several people to death because he hadn't controlled the power of the apparatus well, causing the treatment room to fall into a storm for a while. But every time this happened, it would eventually be suppressed by the families of the other patients in the treatment room. In the minds of those families, their children were already beyond saving, so this treatment was the only way for them. As a therapist who corrected abnormal behavior, Yang Huai's ancestor was once supported by these families and became an emperor-like figure in the entire treatment room. Every day, people came to give him gifts, and he enjoyed the applause and worship of others every day. Even if someone came to cause trouble, they would be strangled in the cradle by his people. Other than treatment, the Yang family never had to worry about anything else. This is a precious video. Mr. Long Ming, after watching it, I hope you won't leak it. Yang Huai took out a CD and smiled at Long Ming. Although this Dr. Yang's strength was far inferior to his, Long Ming still couldn't help but feel a shiver in his heart when the devil-like lips curled up. At the same time, Long Ming noticed that Yang Huai's discs were all specially made. They were made of a material that was impervious to water and fire, and even had some dust-proof properties. The surface of each disc was very smooth. When Yang Huai pushed the disc into the player, he let out a long sigh. It's a pity there wasn't such convenient technology back then, otherwise my ancestors' information wouldn't have been burned. Long Ming was silent, just staring at the image in the video. Soon, the disc was red. A young man in a white short-sleeved shirt appeared in the video. If Yang Huai hadn't said it himself, Long Ming would have found it hard to believe that this was actually a deputy sect leader at the soul formation stage. At that moment, the young man's limbs were being restrained by 5 strong men. 4 of them were holding his hands and feet, and one of them was gagging him with a ball to prevent him from biting his tongue during the treatment, even though his wrists and ankles were shackled. In any case, he's a soul formation powerhouse, so I specially gave him preferential treatment. In addition to restraining his movements with handcuffs and leg irons, I also sent someone else to suppress him, Yang Huai explained as he admired his work. In the video, the treatment device used by the deputy sect master was the one in front of Long Ming. It didn't look very impressive, but it contained a terrifying power. Am I wrong? In the video, Yang Huai spoke slowly, his voice as cold as an ice cave. In the silent treatment room, apart from the sounds of the deputy sect leader's handcuffs and shackles as he struggled, there was only his voice and the faint electromagnetic sound of the miniature stun gun on the treatment device. Open his mouth and let him speak. Yang Huai ordered the burly man who had covered the deputy sect leader's mouth. The treatment did not last long, only 10 to 30 seconds, but it was enough to make the deputy sect master sweat profusely. His face was pale, like a zombie that had just woken up from its coffin. He asked you to send me in. Clearly, the deputy sect master had no idea what had happened before, but after he woke up, he could roughly guess the current situation. Wrong answer. Before he could finish asking, Yang Huai had already turned on the treatment device again, talking to himself. An electric current ran straight through his brain from his temples, down his brainstem, and down his spine to his whole body. A few wisps of white smoke rose from where he had been electrocuted. Long Ming could smell the smell of barbecued meat through the screen. This is the latest recording technology. Even the smell can be restored, Yang Huai replied. Long Ming, here, all questions had to be answered accurately, and the answers had to be precise, or else he would have to face the next treatment. In the video, Yang Huai spoke again. Mr. Deputy Sect Master, it's better for you to admit your mistake quickly. Of course, you can also choose to continue receiving treatment. After the first treatment session, you have a week to recover. Yang Huai's hands paused, and he moved the stun gun away so that the young man would be absolutely conscious when he explained the situation, so that he could hear every word clearly. Yang Huai, the first treatment session must last for 30 days. For the first 10 days, you'll be electrocuted for 3,600 seconds a day. After you get used to it, the duration will increase from 3,600 seconds to 7,200 seconds. The deputy sect master was silent for a moment, then spoke again. Are you treating him or extorting a confession? But before he could finish speaking, the sound of electric current was heard again. Was I wrong? 5 kernel mooncakes are really delicious. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Do you still dare to bicker with Mr. Authentic in the future? I'm the deputy sect master. He has no right to do this to me. He'll suffer divine retribution and the board's verdict. Buzz, buzz, buzz. You actually like 5 kernel mooncakes. You're really a cult. You're as unreasonable as those who eat savory tofu pudding, pancakes, and youtiao. Buzz, 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 you devil. You'll suffer divine retribution sooner or later. You actually dare to struggle? I'll let you struggle. I'll let you struggle. Buzz, 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 Long Ming. After who knew how many times, the deputy sect master finally fainted from the endless electric shocks. By then, Long Ming had already smelled something similar to steak. The strong men let go of him one by one, because the deputy sect master had already fainted. Dr. Yang, aren't we going a little too far? Actually, I think 5 kernel mooncakes are fine. You heretic, do you want to be treated too? But Dr. Yang, this deputy sect master, seems to be cooked. Yang Huai bent down and sniffed, then stuck out his tongue to lick the young man's cheek. About medium rare. Everyone, Yang Huai, give him a sobriety injection and continue the treatment. We've been treating too many patients recently, and we've seriously overspent our food expenses. To save costs, if this deputy sect master's treatment continues to fail and he's cooked, he'll be our food. Chapter 838. As everyone knew, before Mo Immortal Castle was officially incorporated into the Office of Strategic Deception's intelligence unit, it had been Songhai City's largest underground intelligence network and was famous in the industry for peddling intelligence on the cultivation world. Of course, before incorporating Mo Immortal Castle, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and several of the Office of Strategic Deception's management team leaders had figured out a very important pattern. They realized that any organization that went to Mo Immortal Castle to buy intelligence would ultimately be caught in the net of the law. So after some discussion, everyone felt that although Mo Immortal Castle had already been officially incorporated, the base in Songhai City couldn't be evacuated, and the underground intelligence business had to continue. Of course, all of this was based on the Office of Strategic Deception and Huaxiao Alliance's strict supervision. Some information could be disclosed and some couldn't, and whether or not it could be sold was all decided by the Office of Strategic Deception's top brass. The intelligence that was sold was also to catch big fish with a long line, so that Huaxiao Alliance could further crack down on evil forces. But this situation wouldn't last for long. Currently, most people were in the dark about Mo Immortal Castle's incorporation, but no one could guarantee that it wouldn't be exposed one day. Once this matter was exposed, the fishing law enforcement business would no longer be able to continue. So at the very least, they could hide and catch a few big fish before that happened. The founder of the Dark Network and the leaders of the Dark Forces had yet to be captured, and Huaxiao Alliance had joined forces with all the Light Forces to issue bounties for their arrest and punishment. After the matter of Ultimate King of Killers came to an end, General E and the others had a hunch that this year might be the most fruitful. Given Ultimate King of Killers' influential position in the Dark Network and the Dark Forces, his fall was bound to have a major impact on the entire underground Dark Network and its network of Dark Forces. Of course, food had to be eaten bite by bite, a path had to be walked step by step, and words had to be written word by word. All of this had to be done slowly. It was August 12th on Saturday in the 15th week of the semester. It was the second day of number 60 High's first semester final exam. One day until the end of the semester. About 500 days until Wang Ling's graduation. Until the end of the novel, depends on the author's mood. After the exam, Dopeyguo didn't seem to be in a good mood and seemed a little depressed. Super Chun, you screwed up? Dopeyguo, shut up. Super Chun, recently, Dopeyguo realized that Super Chin's mouth seemed to have been blessed. If someone else said he flunked the exam, he would just take it as a joke, but when Super Chin said this, he instantly panicked. Super Chin raised his hand and made a gesture of surrender. I was wrong. Brother, you did very well. More than 90 points. Dopeyguo heaved a sigh of relief. Okay, steady. But on second thought, Dopeyguo felt that something was wrong. They were using a 150-point system. Holy shit, this mouthful of milk. Dopeyguo clutched his chest, feeling as if he had a heart attack. Why go back to play games tonight? My keyboard won't be leaking milk, right? Dopeyguo sighed. I have an uncle who is very close to me. He's actually not that old, but his family is forcing him to get married. What do you think is going on? Little Peanut asked. What about your uncle's attitude? Dopeyguo, of course not. He hadn't had enough fun yet. It was so much freedom to be single. Why are you starting a family so early? Then why aren't you happy that your uncle is being urged to get married? Don't tell me you. Super Chun took a deep breath. Don't tell me you. Oh my God. I always thought you were straight. Nonsense. Of course I'm straight. The reason why I'm unhappy is that my pocket money has always been given to me by my uncle. If he gets married, my pocket money will most likely be given to his girlfriend. Dopey Gwa sighed. I used his pocket money to buy Big Cousin 2 days ago. In the future, if he's taken care of by his girlfriend, who's going to buy games for me? Wang Ling. This reason was too real. And that's not the worst. Dopey Gwa frowned. Have you heard? 2 years ago, the Internet Rehabilitation Center that was shut down all along was still open. It's now called the Abnormal Behavior Rehabilitation Center. My uncle told me before that his family is planning to send him there. Super Chun was blank. No way. They're going to send him there for such a trivial matter? Dopey Gwa. Many people have been sent to prison because of trivial matters, Super Chun. Your uncle is so pitiful. After school today, my uncle asked me out for coffee to vent his grievances. I'll be leaving first, and you can watch my unlucky uncle from behind. Speaking up to this point, Dopey Gwa suddenly turned his gaze to Wang Ling. Actually, my uncle and Wang Ling are a little alike. Super Chun. What do you mean? Dopey Gwa. Dead fish eyes. Wang Ling. Dopey Gwa. So when I first met Wang Ling at school, I felt an inexplicable sense of security and intimacy. Wang Ling. After the exams, Wang Ling went home with Dopey Gwa's uncle to vent his grievances to, so he left with him first. There was always a focal point at a party, and these focal points were the people who could control the pace of the party and make the atmosphere warm up. Dopey Gwa had always played this role. So, without him, it wouldn't be a party. There were no activities today. Everyone went home and looked for their mothers. Wang Ling was actually quite happy. He had almost died of embarrassment at the KTV yesterday. At the school gate, Wang Ling followed Super Chun and Little Peanut to see this young man who was supposedly being urged to get married. As Dopey Gwa had said, his uncle was quite young and was a very sunny and handsome young man. The most important thing was that, as Dopey Gwa had said, this young man had a pair of dead fish eyes that resembled Wang Ling's, except that he lacked that little bit of bearing. Furthermore, this uncle seemed to cry a lot. When he saw Dopey Gwa come out, his eyes were red, and he hurriedly put on the sunglasses he had prepared. What a pitiful person, Wang Ling sighed. When he turned a fork in the road and parted ways with Super Chun and Little Peanut, Wang Ling, who was walking with his head down, was suddenly stopped by 2 huge figures. One of them looked down at the photo in his hand and asked the other, "Is that him?" The other person, "Dead fish eyes, that's right. Take him away." Wang Ling. Then, the 2 of them grabbed Wang Ling's arms and pulled him into the van. Wang Ling deduced that these were probably the group of people from the Internet Addiction Center that Dopey Gwa had mentioned earlier. It was just that these 2 idiots might have mistaken him for someone else. Chapter 839. In the van, 2 brawny men put a black hood over Wang Ling's head, but he appeared very calm. This could be considered a life experience. In a person's life, how many times did they get kidnapped on the way home from school? In the past, Wang Ling had pretended to be lured by snacks to have human traffickers deliberately abduct him, and then followed the clues to help the police destroy human traffickers' nests. But those human traffickers' methods were actually quite tactful. Most of them used food or drinks to trick ignorant children into falling for it. But these 2 gluttons had directly dragged Wang Ling into the van without saying a word. In Wang Ling's view, this could be considered a bold move from a skilled person. Wang Ling himself hadn't expected this to happen at all. His eyelid warning. This was a special warning that usually occurred when Wang Ling encountered something that he thought was troublesome and tricky. But kidnapping, for Wang Ling, this wasn't troublesome or tricky at all. This was stretching his muscles and bones. It would help him keep his grades down in tomorrow's exam. There was only 1 day left before the summer break, and Wang Ling was in a great mood. In any case, he didn't have any activities scheduled for the afternoon. it was good to play with this group of people. Furthermore, using his mind-reading spell, Wang Ling discovered that these two people were from that mysterious internet ring center, which made him even more interested. Even Immo, Immortal Castle, didn't have any accurate leads on that nest. Ever since it had been shut down after being reported a few years ago, word had been circulating on the internet that this internet ring center had been turned into a behavior modification treatment center, which was mobile and didn't have a fixed location. Unless someone from the inside led the way, it was impossible to find out where it was. In the van, the driver stopped at an intersection and casually lit a cigarette. He then looked at Wang Ling, whose head was covered. Have you confirmed it? Why does it feel like things are going so smoothly? Yes, it's exactly the same as in the photo. One of the brawny men holding Wang Ling down nodded. Wang Ling. What F*** king, exactly the same. Don't tell me you kidnapped a student? The driver chuckled. How is that possible? Students nowadays wear school uniforms. This number 60 high's uniform is so ugly, it's very recognizable. The brawny man said again. Wang Ling. He wasn't wearing his school uniform today. There were no classes at the end of the semester. Although there were still people who came to take the exam in school uniforms, there was more freedom in what they wore during this period. To ensure that every student could take the exam in the most relaxed mood, number 60 high school made an exception during this kind of large-scale exam period, allowing students to wear whatever they liked and were comfortable with. No wonder these two idiots mistook him for someone else. It was because he wasn't wearing his school uniform. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. Why hasn't he spoken since we brought him into the car? One of the men suddenly asked. At that moment, Wang Ling suddenly realized that his behavior might be a little abnormal. Generally speaking, after being kidnapped, one should struggle a little. If he appeared to be too calm, it might not be good. Thus, he closed his eyes and started to control the air around him to attack his skin to create the feeling that he was trembling with fear. Wang Ling didn't know how often he would tremble. After all, he had never trembled since he was a child. The only time he had trembled was 6 years ago when Dog 2 had still been a sky-swallowing toad, when its butt had smashed the century-old crispy noodle snack flagship store. Sure enough, when the two brawny men saw Wang Ling start to tremble, they calmed down a lot. Ha ha! Looks like you're too scared to speak. Little brother, don't be afraid. We're just taking you to get a massage. Don't be nervous. One of the brawny men patted Wang Ling on the shoulder. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that Wang Ling was vibrating a little fast, just like the vibrator he had used 2 days ago. The van drove on the road for more than an hour. Finally, the van entered a park and stopped in the park's parking lot. After the driver had finished his job, he drove the van away again, as if he was going to pick up the next person. The two brawny men shoved Wang Ling into the thicket. One of them then took off Wang Ling's hood, and a wooden house marked 13 came into view. The legendary treatment room, 13, had now become a mobile wooden house. It didn't look very big, but it gave off a very gloomy feeling. Furthermore, space expansion technology had been used inside. After being pushed in by the two men, Wang Ling judged from their auras that there were at least 100 people inside the wooden house. Wang Ling was shocked. This was simply a mobile prison cell. Wang Ling waited in the lobby for a while under the watch of the two brawny men, and it wasn't long before Yang Huai came out. Next to him was an acquaintance whom Wang Ling had fought before, Long Ming. The two of them talked and laughed as they walked toward the lobby. Hee, rest assured, Mr. Long Ming, there's no problem with your request. I'll make arrangements right away to make those number 60 high kids obedient. Then I'll have to trouble Dr. Yang with this revenge plan. Long Ming smiled. Revenge plan? No. Mr. Long Ming, you're wrong. This is an educational plan. Ha ha. Yes, Dr. Yang is right. This is an educational plan. At that moment, the two men had already reached Wang Ling. When Long Ming looked down at Wang Ling, his face changed in fright, and he broke out in a cold sweat. F***K, why was it him? One of the brawny men got up and said to Yang Huai, Dr. Yang, we've brought the patient, Guofeng. Yang Huai. Mr. Long Ming, let me explain that this is a new patient I'm treating today, Guofeng. He's rather introverted. His family has tried many times to persuade him to get married, but he never agreed, so they sent me here. I bought a primary treatment package. Long Ming was blank. Guofeng? Had he mistaken him for someone else? Just as he was about to open his mouth to confirm with Yang Huai, who knew that the youngster sitting there would suddenly raise his eyes to look at him. This look directly struck Long Ming's heart, and he froze on the spot in fright, feeling all the hair on his body stand on end. Dr. Yang, I have something to do today. I'm leaving first. In the next second, Long Ming directly rushed out of the wooden house without another word. That was right, he directly rushed out. That look just now was too frightening. Long Ming had no doubt that if he hadn't left, this youngster would have taken his life in an instant. Wang Ling's gaze was as calm as autumn water as he swept the door. Long Ming had escaped, but he wouldn't be able to run for long. Wang Ling had already left a mark on him with that look just now. Chapter 840. After being shut down in protest by netizens back then, the famous Internet Rehab Center had now become a mobile abnormal behavior correction center. So far, there were more than 100 patients in it. These patients were of all ages, young and old. Some had been sent in by their families because they liked playing mahjong. Some had been sent in because of puppy love. Some had been sent in because they drank Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi. And some, like Dopigua's uncle, Guofeng, had been sent in because he was slow to find a girlfriend to marry. The patients who were admitted here had all sorts of reasons, and all of them were abnormal, which was in line with Dr. Yang's usual treatment style. In the waiting hall earlier, when Long Ming had recognized Wang Ling and fled, Wang Ling had used the Great Blood Origin spell to trace this Dr. Yang's ancestors, and in the end discovered that this Dr. Yang's ancestors had actually been beaten up by Wang Zhen. Back then, the 36th generation had been beaten up by Wang Zhen, and starting from the 36th generation, Wang Zhen's disfiguring curse had been passed down. But it was a pity perhaps this curse would end in this generation, because in a little while, this place would disappear forever. At that moment, Wang Ling was already chained to the bed. The feeling of being handcuffed for the first time in his life was actually a little strange, but it was best not to try this kind of experience. Wang Ling didn't want to be like that sister try in the subway, who refused to listen to advice and even attacked a police officer with a knife. There were always some self-righteous giant babies in society who thought that everyone would give in to them and take care of them in every possible way. But reality proved that this kind of people just lacked half a brain. Obeying the law was something that even a primary school student understood, but some people who went to university still wanted to violate it. So reality proved that a person's quality and education didn't have much to do with each other. It all depended on family education. On this point, Father and Mother Wang were more confident than anyone else. Although Wang Ling had been a little chinibu as a child, the couple had still managed to get their son on the right track. After thinking about it carefully, Wang Ling felt that it actually had a lot to do with Father and Mother Wang writing novels. People who wrote novels were more or less chinibu, so Father and Mother Wang were very confident in educating people who were chinibu. At that moment, Wang Ling was lying on the treatment table, his limbs held down by several strong men, one of whom had stuffed a ball into his mouth. Gotcha! Then he very calmly crushed the ball in his mouth. Yang Huai was taken aback. I didn't think you'd be a martial artist. The brawny man who stuffed the balls was also a little confused. Dr. Yang, what do we do now? Bring me black iron, Yang Huai said. The burly man nodded, and with a flash of light, an 80 by 40 metal box appeared in his hand. When the box was opened, there were all kinds of balls made of different materials inside. When the burly man stuffed the black iron ball into Wang Ling's mouth, everyone heard a crisp crack. Yang Huai furrowed his eyebrows and was a little angry. Take something made of mysterious divine jade. Gotcha, Yang Huai. Bring the great harmony diamond ones. Gotcha, Yang Huai. Revered black crystal. High-grade mystic crystal. I don't believe it. Katja, the brawny man, do you still want it? Dr. Yang? Yang Huai was already sweating. Take. Mother asterisk cur. Forget it, let's leave it at that. If he bites his tongue, it's his own business. Yang Huai always felt very excited during treatment, especially when he saw a ball stuffed in the patient's mouth. It was as if that excitement could activate his adrenaline, and the more he electrocuted him, the more excited he became. But now, because the ball wasn't in his mouth, this Dr. Yang's excitement instantly dissipated by more than half. At that moment, Yang Huai was inexplicably exhausted and annoyed. He had run this clinic for many years and had seen all kinds of strange patients. Even a soul formation cultivator could only be electrocuted here, and in the end, they would have to bow their heads and submit to him. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? An inexplicable anger made Yang Huai subconsciously turn the dial on the treatment device straight to the 10th gear, which directly startled the brawny man next to him. According to the family information on the patient they had kidnapped this time, he was only at the chi condensation stage and wasn't particularly powerful. To directly start with the 10th gear treatment was already completely out of the norm. Usually, when the chi condensation treatment was turned on at the 2nd or 3rd gear, the patient would already feel enough pain, but now the treatment had actually been increased 5-fold. The ultimate treatment device in treatment room 13 had a total of 100 power levels, and even a god or devil would have to kneel before it. He was able to crush my ball, which proves that this person's strength definitely isn't as his family reported. He's definitely hiding something. Yang Huai sneered. Since he dared to resist him, he should be prepared to accept humiliation. Oh no, treatment. Thus, while Wang Ling was filled with anticipation, Yang Huai's stun gun finally pressed against his temples. This was a necessary step for all patients undergoing treatment. The stun gun would start stimulating the temples on both sides, and then quickly move to the space between the eyebrows before merging. Depending on the patient's condition, this process would last for 10 to 30 seconds. But at that moment, Yang Huai was in a fit of anger, so he deliberately pushed very slowly and directly limited the treatment to a maximum of 30 seconds. Wang Ling could feel an electric current passing through his pores, but he didn't struggle at all, because it was actually a very comfortable feeling. The electric current poured in from the temples and finally slowly retired to the space between the eyebrows. Somehow, Wang Ling felt that this action was a little familiar. When the electric current converged on the space between the eyebrows, he finally remembered this was clearly an eye exercise, pressing the temples and scraping the eye sockets. But the electric current stimulation was clearly more comfortable than the eye exercise. He had been taking exams all morning, but in the end, he was receiving an electric therapy massage here, which was pretty good. On the other side, the burly man and Yang Huai, who were holding Wang Ling down, were also stupefied. To be honest, this was the first time they had encountered such a situation. This patient actually didn't have the slightest reaction to the electric current stimulation. I'm going to kill you. Yang Huai was emboldened, and he gritted his teeth angrily. Then, he directly turned on the treatment device to the 50th gear. Although he didn't turn it all on, the 50th gear, even a soul formation cultivator wouldn't be able to handle it. Even if this person could crush the ball in his mouth, Yang Huai believed that the strength of the 50th gear was enough to send him to hell 80 times over. Go to hell. Chapter 841. There weren't many people who could withstand level 50, which was a fatal level of electricity. A soul formation cultivator wouldn't die, but living at this level would be worse than death. Previously, there had been no more than 10 people who could be treated at this level, and among them, there were some famous names. The treatment center's cure success rate wasn't 100% and was maintained at 97%, so there were still cases of treatment failure. For example, a few years ago, Yang Huai remembered an author who was sent to treatment room 13 after being bribed by readers to update a chapter every day. But because his skin was too thick, the electricity couldn't move him, and he could only give up in the end. For example, there was another author who went out every day to collect materials, which led to mental exhaustion and disharmony between husband and wife, and he was also sent to treatment room 13. In the end, the electric current stimulated his meridians, and he was even cured of his impotence. Another example was a dancer who was dancing well, but insisted on going out to sing. Because his singing was too bad, his fans crowdfunded him to be sent to treatment room 13. In the end, after treatment, he unexpectedly became the king of EDM and attracted a lot of fans both inside and outside the circle, and people gave him the nickname EDM Little Prince. But this kind of situation had become very rare since last year, because every patient who was sent here had been carefully selected. Yang Huai wouldn't accept those whose realms were too high or who were resistant to treatment. Most of the patients who could stay in the treatment center were ordinary people, and only a few were at the foundation establishment stage. So Yang Huai was very surprised by Guofun's situation. He was just an ordinary person, but he had managed to resist Yang Huai's repeated treatments. So when level 50 of electricity pierced his skin and passed through his body, his eyebrows finally twitched slightly. He could feel the heat in his body continuously growing. This was too comfortable. This level of massage was actually just right for Wang Ling, but it was still a little lacking compared to the Heavenly Tao Lightning Tribulation. The Heavenly Tao Lightning Tribulation was quite ferocious. Wang Ling had only triggered a lightning tribulation after his childhood memories had gradually awakened, and he had slowly completed the 3,000 great spells. But strangely, the lightning hadn't been aimed at him, but it seemed to be venting something. But Wang Ling had still used his own strength to draw the Heavenly Tao lightning to himself. He wanted to see what it felt like to be struck by lightning. To this day, Wang Ling couldn't forget that feeling. Normal cultivators were all afraid of the heavenly tribulation lightning, because during the process of transcending a tribulation, the mortality rate was very high. Normally, during a tribulation, a cultivator could only endure about 20 waves of lightning strikes. 20 was the limit. If one was unlucky, the number of lightning strikes from the heavenly tribulation would exceed this number, and the mortality rate would greatly increase. In the end, they would fail to transcend the tribulation. They would either dissipate into dust or become roasted pork trotters. Wang Ling's performance was the same as before at level 50 of the electric shock treatment. This caused Dr. Yang and the other muscular men to be greatly shocked. How is this possible? Yang Huai's eyes widened. He wanted to increase the intensity of the treatment. But at that moment, Wang Ling actually straightened himself up. With a light tug, he directly broke the titanium alloy handcuffs and leg cuffs, and in the end, he crushed them like paper in front of Yang Huai and the others into iron dust on the spot. The game is over, Wang Ling said telepathically. A sound that struck directly at the soul struck the hearts of everyone here, like a Buddhist staff striking the bell in an ancient temple. Catch him, Yang Huai ordered. But the muscular men looked at each other in dismay, and no one made a move. They were all under Wang Ling's control, and it felt as if their feet were wrapped in iron weights, making it impossible for them to move even half a step. Yang Huai was so frightened that several tufts of his hair fell out. Under the other party's stupefied gaze, Wang Ling took out his student ID and showed it to Yang Huai. Student information: Wang Ling, gender, male, birthday, December 26th, 4380 class, grade 1, class 3 school, Songhai number 60 high school hobby, crispy noodle snacks. In addition to the above information, the student ID had been personally stamped with a steel seal from the administration office, which also confirmed its authenticity. Cultivation school steel seals all contained spirit energy. Although Yang Huai's realm wasn't high, he could still sense it from the steel seal. He finally understood why did simple treatment fail again and again. So it was this person. It wasn't Guofun at all. These F*King bastards. They actually brought the wrong person to him. What to do? Yang Huai retreated again and again. He had even given up on the idea of fighting. It was obvious that he couldn't beat this youngster at all. This person wasn't an ordinary person. a Foundation Establishment high school student actually possessed such enormous power. Now that his subordinates had been immobilized, Yang Huai's first reaction was to run. He immediately pushed open the door to treatment room 13 and directly grabbed a teenager with a crew cut who looked a little stiff in the corridor. A red ribbon was tied around his arm, which proved that he had already obtained Yang Huai's approval to become the clinic's class monitor. The teenager was startled. "Uncle Yang, what's wrong?" Yang Huai gripped the boy's neck. This was the Eagle Claw, and with a single thought, he could take the boy's life. "Be good and don't do anything else. Do you understand?" Yang Huai stared at the teenager. The teenager was obviously a little scared, and his body couldn't help trembling. "Uncle Yang, I'm a class monitor. I'll listen to Uncle Yang." "Uncle Yang, don't shock me." "Be good, as long as you're good. Uncle Yang won't shock you," Yang Huai said in a low voice, but his eyes were fixed in Wang Ling's direction. At that moment, Wang Ling had already stepped out of the treatment room. He had long since anticipated this scumbag's next move. Sure enough, this person had already lost his humanity. At this juncture, he actually wanted to use the lives of other children as a condition to hold Wang Ling hostage. And it was this kind of heartless, inhumane, and indifferent bastard beast who could actually escape punishment from the law and live comfortably until now. Where was justice? Where was Heavenly Tao? Could it be that Heavenly Tao was blind? Wang Ling questioned in his heart. But what he didn't know was that these 3 questions had actually directly shaken the heavens. After these 3 questions, the great Heavenly Taos all trembled when they heard this. As for the Heavenly Tao conference table, after these 3 questions, it actually flipped itself over and flew away. Strength Heavenly Tao, Table God, Heavenly Tao conference table. I'll leave first. I wish you all good health. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.